Okay, we're getting ready to start. Okay. Okay. Ready? Still need a minute. I think we've sorted out all of our technical difficulties and we're ready to start. Okay. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Gilbert Planning Commission and Design Review Board. We'd like to first start with the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Commissioner September, or Councilmember September.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call.
Commissioner Bianchi? Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah.
Commissioner Munt?
Here.
Commissioner Jones?
Here.
Commissioner Fay?
Here.
Commissioner Blazer? Commissioner Ashton? Vice Chairman Simon?
Here.
Chairman Bloomfield?
Here. Okay. Previously, we talked about making changes to the agenda. Vice Chair, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with moving items 12, 13, and 14 to the consent.
Second.
Okay. Vice Chair Simon made the motion and is seconded by who? By Commissioner Munt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We have our agenda. Communications from the citizens. At this time, members of the public may comment on matters within jurisdiction of the town, but not on the agenda. The Commissioner Board response is limited to responding to criticism, asking staff to review a matter commented upon, or asking that a matter be put on a future agenda. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on something not on the agenda tonight? Ava, can you open up the WebEx and see if anybody wishes to speak?
We'll now unmute the call-in line. If there anybody that wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, please state your name. Is there anybody that wishes to speak?
Doesn't sound like it. It sounds like a lot of stuff, but not that. So, okay. Moving on, item number 8, report from the council liaison on current events. Councilmember September.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to just make an announcement for those of you who may not be aware. Gilbert's public safety training facility is now open. This is an $87 million facility that was paid for by a bond that was approved by Gilbert voters several years ago. And it's located on a 50-acre parcel south on Power Road. It is a state-of-the-art training facility. I'm very proud of Team Gilbert, everybody who worked on this. It was a multiple year development just for the design that started years ago. And our staff looked at several training facilities around the nation. They looked at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they came up with a design that is truly one of a kind. There's tactical training, there's classrooms, there's a shooting range, there's burn buildings that catch on fire. The fire puts them out, and they can catch them on fire again for training. There's also a driving track, and the way the town used this property very wisely, the driving track is actually down in a floodplain, so not usable for many things, but great for a driving track. And so kudos to everybody involved in that. And right now, the very first fire academy, the first class of recruits has started training. So we're excited about that. I just wanted to share that with everybody tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that update. Okay, we're on the public hearing consent calendar. All items listed below are considered to be on this consent calendar. The Commissioner Board may, by a single motion, approve any number of items where, after opening the public hearing, no person requests the item to be removed from the consent calendar. If such a request is made, the Commissioner Board shall then withdraw the item from the public hearing consent calendar for the purpose of public discussion and separate action. Other items on the agenda may be added to the consent calendar and approved under a single motion, which we've already done. Okay, on this consent calendar, we have item number 9, DR 20-173 Victory Plaza, located at Greenfield and Queen Creek Roads. GP 20-04 Lamb Lane, which is a request for minor general plan amendment, and also Z 20-09 Lamb Lane. Both of those will be continued to a date uncertain at this point. And we've moved up items number 12, DR 20-133, the Murphy on the Tracks, which is located at Guadalupe and Gilbert Roads. And item Z 20-13 Caballero Vista, which is at Lindsay and Galveston. And then Mercy Center PAD amendment, item number 14, Z 20-07 has all been moved up. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on those cases? Seeing none, do we need to open WebEx? Okay.
Mute the line. Please state if you wish to speak on any of the cases that the chairman just spoke of. One moment.
I'm pretty sure they unmuted everybody.
Okay. Not hearing anybody wants to speak on those, we will have those all on the consent calendar. Vice Chair?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve items 9, DR 20-173, 10, GP 20-04, 11, Z 20-09, 12, DR 20-133, 13, Z 20-130, and 14, Z 20-07. Move to approve.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We are now to our regular agenda, and we have item number 1. Before we start, just because we have a lot of residents who probably have not been to too many of these in the past. If you wish to speak, you've been invited to fill out one of these cards, and you'll be granted 3 minutes to speak if you wish to. We'll read all the names and your position if you choose not to speak, and that's okay. We'll run through all of those names as well as part of the public hearing. If you wish to donate your time to somebody else, that person will get 10 minutes to speak. and we'll keep track and listen to that. If there's still items that you have not heard that you wish to address, please feel free and to fill out one of these cards and stand up and add to the discussion. But it needs to pertain to the case at hand, which if I'm guessing right, most of you are not here to hear the Watterson case, which is the only other one on the agenda tonight. So if you're not here to do that, then we would invite you to just, the only thing on the agenda tonight is for the design review of that facility as it's presented in the application, and that is as a miniature golf course and as a go-kart track. So we'll be happy to hear any comments you have in regard to the design of that. So moving on, item number 15, 16, and 17 is all Watterson North Phase 1 and the different parcels. And Sydney, take it away.
Good evening, Commissioners. So I'm presenting all three of these items at one time. They're all within the same subdivision, so they're all standard plans for the same subdivision. So just for the sake of time, we'll do it all together here. So the Watterson North subdivision is located at the northwest corner of Alvista Drive and Ocotillo Road. It's presently 162 gross acres, and you previously saw 3 additional standard plans on this site that were approved administratively. You also saw this case with all 3 of these standard plans also presented as one item last month at study session. Due to some issues in the design that were not addressed by the applicant, we have brought this forward back to your consideration for approval on public hearing, opposed to approving these 3 administratively. So all 3 of the standard plan applications are 3 separate zoning districts. We have SF6, SF7, and SF8. There are 3 elevation styles that are all concurrent across all 3 of the applications, and they are ranch, desert modern, and farmhouse, and each one of those has 4 color schemes, and there are 2 separate color palettes that are utilized between all 3 of the applications. So you previously saw this with 2 phases included in it, so this might look a little smaller. So they cut it down to 1 phase. So the items highlighted in red are the lots before you tonight with the standard plans. Phase 2 will come in at a later date when that final plat is approved. So they're still waiting on that final plat, so they decided to just proceed forward with phase 1, which that final plat was approved by council and recorded. The lots in red, orange, and yellow were the ones that were previously approved administratively. So here's just a view for you of all of the lots and what will ultimately happen in phase 2. So it'll be a total of 216 lots. And here's just the final plat. And again, phase 2, that final plat was taken out from this application. So I'll just quickly run through the elevations. They're very similar to what you guys saw last month. There are some changes that the applicant did provide. They did provide some additional stone veneer. They did modify some of the windows and shutters located on there per the direction of the commission. So this is the first one, the smallest product on SF6. So front, side, and then rear elevations. This is the SF7 product. So as you saw previously, it's the same 3 styles. So again, the ranch, desert modern, and farmhouse, and similar items were applied to these set as well, and also in the next set that you'll see with the increased stone veneer and the changes to those windows and shutters. And again, side and rear. And then this is the last set. So this is actually the largest lot type within the whole subdivision, the SF8. So they're at minimum 9,000 square foot lots. And this is the largest product that is going to be located in Watterson. And again, the same comments apply to as the first 2. So here, as I discussed in my staff report, one of the biggest concern that staff has, and that the commission also shared last month, was that there wasn't a that there was a lack of diversity in the elevation styles that are coming in. So there are 486 lots in this entire subdivision, and there was a concern with all of those lots, even though they're varying sizes. There's 4 different sizes of the lots that they would not create a sense of place or a distinctive style, repeating the same styles over again. So something that staff took into consideration through the suggestion of the Planning Commission was adding a condition of approval that I'll show in the end of requiring a 4th elevation style. So staff took it one step further and is asking for a unique elevation style for each application. So 1 new elevation style for the remaining 3. So the previously approved standard plans did not include this. This is new for this one based off of the commission's input. So the applicant did provide these renderings of a prairie style. So this is a style that they're willing to provide. They wanted to provide it for all 3 applications. We would like that it would be provided on 1 and 2 unique ones be provided on the other 2 going forward. And then here's just an overview of the colors and materials. So they're desert neutral tones with some pops of color in here. So this is the first set of colors and materials. And then this is just the second. So they're distributed between all 6 of the applications. 3 have one style, 3 have the other. So I just condensed the concerns that the commission had at the last study session, color palette concerns. Since then, the applicant did provide that second color palette. It is this color palette here. Lack of diversity in elevation styles. To address that, we added that condition of approval. And there were multiple concerns about specific architectural details on there. So some things that had to do with roof lines, windows, and those types of elements. So those were taken in consideration by the applicant and reflected on those specific plan types. It was specifically for the SF 20-17. And so staff is recommending approval of all 3 projects, so it will need to be 3 separate motions. These 3 standards, conditions of approval are across all 3 of them. They're the exact same conditions. The highlighted one is the condition that staff added to require the applicant to provide a 4th elevation style. And how that would work if we approve that here tonight is they would have to come back to staff and work with us to submit a 4th elevation style prior to submitting to building to start their permit review. So we would work with them after this to get that completed, and then they could move on to construction document review. And I am here for questions. I know I went through that really quickly, but I'm trying to be mindful of time.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments on the new standard plans and what's being proposed? Yes, Commissioner Anderson.
Stephanie, you made a comment that the applicant will be submitting a 4th elevation. How will you be judging whether that is compliant with the others that we would be approving to tonight?
Commissioner Anderson, so we would compare it against what would be either approved tonight or continued. So we would make sure that it's a unique style. So their suggestion was a prairie. We're not asking for specific elevations. We're okay with whatever style they propose. So we'll just review it the same way that we review standard plans administratively. So we just route it through the process and complete full review comments.
Okay, thank you. My comment is just looking at what they submitted for this review compared to what they submitted last time. I would like to thank them for making the elevation changes that we requested. I mean, they didn't get all of them, but they did get a good amount of them. So I would like to thank the applicant for those changes.
Okay, Commissioner Jones and then Commissioner Bunt.
Yeah, I echo that as well. I think we've seen a lot of change in this project, and I appreciate the applicant and staff working on this one. From my opinion, this new prairie style, I think it looks good. I wouldn't be opposed to just applying it across the others as well, rather than creating 2 additional distinctive styles. That's just my opinion.
Yes, Commissioner Bunt.
Thank you, Chairman Bloomfield. Yeah, I wanted to comment that I think they did a very good job in addressing those comments, and they even gave it a slight feel of Beetlejuice-esque, but with better color palettes, and I think it looks pretty cool, so well done.
Okay. Anybody else?
I was fine with it before, so it's even better now.
Yeah, very good. Okay. I think we're all pleased and express our gratitude to the applicant for the changes made. And we do need a motion. I'm sorry, I'm still in study session mode, so.
That's
And
okay.
Chair Bloomfield, sorry to
Yes.
interrupt, but if you feel that they would like the same elevation style of the prairie to be applied across all three, we just need to modify that condition of approval to state that the prairie elevation style be applied opposed to a unique. So we just need to modify that language if that's what the commission would like to do.
Okay. Is there anybody else who wants to address before I bring it up to the dais? And okay. Then we'll close the public hearing and just.
Chairman,
Oh,
I need
can
to
we do
open
that?
up the.
Oh, sure you do.
I will open up the public line. If anybody would like to speak on the Watterson phases, please state your name. I'm unmuting now. Does anybody wish to speak?
Okay, thank you. Okay, bring it to the dais, and as we discuss this, I just want to please ask your opinion. Do we follow the recommendation of staff and request a unique across the other two styles, or are we okay with just a prairie being applied across the board? So. One.
I would
just
feel
add that-
comfortable with staff taking the lead on whatever these architectural changes are that they're requesting and going
Okay.
forward.
Okay. Somebody feel comfortable making a motion then?
I can go ahead and do it.
Please.
I'd like to recommend a motion to approve the findings of fact and approve ST 20-17 Watterson North Phase 1, Parcel 5 for standard plans for Tri-Point Homes for 45 lots on approximately 17.74 acres, generally located at the northwest corner of Alvista Drive and Ocotillo Road, zone single-family 6, SF6, with a planned area development PAD overlay subject to conditions.
You want to extend that over 16 and 17 as well?
I can do that if you would like. me
Please
to.
do.
For item 16, approve the findings and fact and approve ST 20-18 Watterson North Phase 1, Parcel 2 for standard plans by Tri-Point Homes for 41 lots on approximately 34.49 acres, generally located south of the southeast corner of Appleby Road and 148th Street, Zone Single Family SF7, with a planned area development PAD overlay subject to conditions. And for item 17, recommend motion ST 20-19 Watterson North Phase 1, Parcel 1 for standard plans by Tri-Point Homes for 16 lots on approximately 38.6 acres, generally located at the southeast corner of Appleby Road and 148th Street, Zone Single Family SF8, with a planned area development PAD overlay subject to conditions.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Anderson and a second by Vice Chair Simon. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Okay. Item number 18. Stephanie Bubenheim is going to be our planner on this. Make your presentation. And then we'll open up the public hearing.
All right, good evening, commissioners. My name is Stephanie Bubenheim. I'm presenting the case for Design Review DR 20-182 tonight for Santana Venture Park. The site is located on the southwest corner of Santan Village Parkway and Knox Road. It's part of the Crossroads Park, so there's an existing, some ball fields, a lake, a dog park, and the Arizona Ice Den that was approved in 2006. So the subject site is about 4.55 acres, and it is going to be phased as proposed in 2 phases. So we're looking at the first phase tonight. That phase is the lower half in the brown on this phasing plan here, and it is about 2.4 acres. Just a brief history, the Parks and Rec Department is available tonight if there are additional questions, as this is a lease agreement between the Parks and Rec Department since it is on the Crossroads Park and it's owned by the town of Gilbert. So in October of 2016, there was a public outreach meeting regarding the Santana Venture Park. In March of 2017, the town council did approve a lease agreement, which is titled a Development, Operating, and Maintenance Lease Agreement for Santana Venture Park. So that's between the town and SAP Holdings LLC. Oh, sorry. Oh, it's freaking out. And then in 2017, the project was being proposed as conceptual. The project didn't end up being stalled due to funding, so there was never any formal design review application submitted, so this is the first that you are seeing this since it has been under planning. And then in December of 2020 is when the current applicant submitted the DR 20-182 that's before you tonight for phase 1. This is an illustration of the site plan. And as I mentioned before, it's 2.4 acres. There is an 18-hole miniature golf course, a 22-cart outdoor gas-powered go-kart racetrack, and there is also a splash pad. There are 3 buildings that are part of the design review. So the first one is a concession stand building that's just about 2,700 square feet, and then a go-kart canopy that is about 2,400 square feet, and then a maintenance building that's 900 square feet. I'll put a pointer on. So there's concession building, the go-kart canopy, and then the maintenance building. For the landscape plan, they are using low water use intensive landscaping throughout the site. Part of the commission comments at study session was that some of the landscaping was sparse, so they have added additional landscaping in the mini golf course. They've exchanged some of the tree types so that there's more canopies as they are growing. And then for the go-kart track, they did include additional landscape shrubs and trees. And at the study session, they did not have any of these trees that were along Santan Village Parkway, so they have added those as well. For landscape details, there might be some questions tonight about the fencing, so I just wanted to outline those. Along the perimeter of the site is the view fence that is going to be 8 feet in height. And then at the dog park, that's at the southwest corner of the site, there is a partial view fence, so it's 6 feet in height. The first 3 feet are a solid CMU block wall, and then the additional 3 feet on top is a view fence. For additional landscape details, this will be the entrance to the adventure park and some signage that they are proposing. So this will be seen from the internal of the parking lot, and they just have some conceptuals of the entrance gate. And this is a conceptual of the splash pad. Preliminary grading and drainage plans are provided if we need to discuss them tonight. They have been working with the town, with the Crossroads Park as a whole, to make sure that the grading and retention is met. For the elevations of the concession building, at study session, there were some comments about having the concession building fit the mini golf theme. So the mini golf theme is a Old West mining theme. And the applicant has revised the building to be more in line with that theme. So at the highest parapet point of the building, there are some wood siding material that is reminiscent of the Old West mining structures that I'll show you in a bit of the golf cart. I say golf cart and go-kart, and I'm going to mix them up. Of the golf tongue twister, of the golf scenes. They've also changed the colors of the building so that they're more in line with the southwest palette, and they changed the outdoor trellis area to have that wood siding as well. They did mention that they want to keep it as a contemporary style with the Old West mining theme architectural details, as they are not sure that the Phase 2 will have the Old West mining theme as well. And then these are the additional elevations. This side will be internal to the parking lot, and they are proposing a mural on a portion of the building, so this is just a conceptual of the mural at the moment. And these are the elevations for the cart canopy that will have where the outdoor go-kart track will be. And then this is the maintenance building. The maintenance building is using the same colors and materials as the concession building. And then a list of the colors and materials. They are using CMU and the wood lap siding, as well as some paint for the ephes. And then I'll just take you through some of the mini golf course conceptuals. Since they are structures, they do need to meet the requirements for height, and that is why they're being brought forth to you. So this will be the proposed entrance to the golf course. And then they have a couple different holes throughout this presentation of different sections of the course. And this is, I'll just blaze through these. This is the Waterfall Elevation that will be along Santan Village Parkway. So this, under review, there was a time that there was a flame feature, and that was also part of the study session concerns about the flame feature and how high it was and if it's going to be seen from the neighbors. So that has since been removed, so that flame feature is no longer part of the conceptuals. And then this is the last hole of the site. And then I have the floor plans of the 3 structures. And we also have the photometrics plan. This was reviewed to meet our town code lighting requirements. So there are a couple different codes that they have to meet, such as none of the lighting can be spilling over 0.3-foot candles from the property line. And then if there are any light poles that are within 100 feet of residential property, that they have to be a certain height. So we have clarified that they are outside of that 100 feet boundary of the residential across the street. And then there are a couple lighting cut sheets of the different lights that are proposed. And I basically outlined, as during my presentation, commenting on the concerns that were brought forward at study session. But for public outreach, I did want to touch on that since we have a lot of public here tonight. So at the time of the staff report was published, staff had received 1 phone call and 2 emails in support of the project, and there were about 16 citizens that were concerned or against the project. Summary of the concerns, I'll read these. Unsupportive of outdoor go-kart track, noise generating from the outdoor go-kart track, lights and sounds generating from the mini golf course attraction, reduction in property values, reduction in quality of life, increased traffic on Santan Village Parkway and Knox Road, and the hours of operation. Since the staff report was published, staff has received additional emails and phone calls. So all of the emails that have been sent to me or to other staff that have been directed to me have been provided to all of the planning commissioners. So there's been about 4 emails in support of the project and 50 emails concerned or opposed of the project. So from that summary of concerns I just read, I added to that. So I'll get after hours of operation. There are also concerns about the impacts to the dogs at the dog park at the southwest corner of the go-kart track. Parking issues on site, vehicles driving through Cottonwood Crossing subdivision, that's the subdivision that's north of Knox Road, and also emissions and odors from the gas-powered go-karts. And there also has been a change.org petition that was created in opposition of the project. The applicant did perform a noise study, so I wanted to briefly go through that with you. The noise study consultant is here tonight if there are additional questions and should be directed towards them, as I do not have the best noise knowledge here. But the noise study was completed by MD Acoustics. The go-kart manufacturer specifications that are listed does say that the go-kart noise levels are approximately 79 dBA at 22 feet away. And then the MD consultant did perform 2 24-hour baseline noise measurements, and this is called the ambient noise level. So one was taken on Thursday, February 18th, and one on Saturday, February 20th, and all of the data is attached at the end of the study. The hourly average noise levels ranged from 53 to 62 dBA. So at that, they took the 53 dBA and used that as a baseline. There were 5 receptor points that were modeled, and then the operational project noise levels at the dog park and residential areas is anticipated to range between 43 to 46. So the conclusions from the study found that the dog park with the project noise levels and the existing ambient noise levels would have a change from the 53 dBA to the 57 dBA. And that is why you'll see the view fence had changed to be that screen wall fence to try and alleviate some of that sound. And then the residential areas exterior noise levels will change about 1 dBA. And it did conclude that the traffic noise will mask operational noise from the project during peak traffic hours. So there were 2 tables as part of the noise study that we can go to if you have additional questions on that. The noise study did also include the go-kart manufacturing noise levels, and they did take the highest noise level dBA to test that. And then from the noise study, there are 2 graphic illustrations. So this is showing the existing ambient noise levels, and the yellow circles are the different receptors. And then from here, they put the go-kart track into that model and are showing the changes with putting that with the ambient noise levels. I also put in the municipal code requirements for the town of Gilbert on noise. So that is measured from the inside of a home if we do have additional questions on the noise requirements within the municipal code. And then for staff recommendations, staff does recommend approval of the project for the design review as it's presented. And then there's been a lot of questions about how the process works here. So just to tell everyone, but I'm sure you guys know this, you can either vote to vote to approve, vote to deny, or you can vote to continue the case. If you have any questions, I can jump to any of the slides.
Okay. Thank you. Well done. Are there any questions from the commission? None?
I do.
Oh, please, Commissioner Fay.
What we're voting on to approve or deny or continue is not whether or not to have this. It's the configuration and the aesthetics and that kind of stuff, right?
So the lease agreement that was approved in 2017 has a list of permitted uses, and those are the permitted uses that are possible to be part of the Santana Venture Park. So this design review that you're seeing is a few of those uses were taken and put into the design. So you're reviewing the design of those and how the site layout is, as well as our land development codes, but you're also reviewing it in addition to any concerns that you've had, concerns that staff has had, and concerns from the public for the design of it.
And I did have one other question. Last time when this came forward, the thing that I had expressed some concerns about was the dog park and the Parks Department. My understanding is the Parks Department has made plans to, in addition to the partial screen wall, the CMU block partial screen wall or partial view wall, has also made plans to put in some landscaping in addition. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, I'll have John Kennedy speak on that one.
Thank you, Commissioners, Chair, Commissioner Fay. Yes, the Parks and Rec Department is committed to looking at what other changes in layout that might be pertinent to this particular situation, which may include additional hedgerows, things of that nature. Also looking at how we could reconfigure location to best utilize the situation.
So to get to the specifics, the wall right now, are we talking about at all relocating any of the dog parks, moving any of them, or the barrier or the boundary between the dog park and particularly the go-kart track? Is there a specific plan in mind in the Parks Department, or is it just we'll do what we need to as we get there?
There's not a definitive plan. It would stay within the existing footprint, but we do think there are avenues we could take within that existing footprint to mitigate any potential issues.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Anderson.
Steffi, so I read through all the letters that were sent to us these past couple of days, and the common thread between them is really related to sound of this go-kart track. Is sound considered a design element that we have authority or some sort of jurisdiction to comment on, or is sound just something out of our element? Like, to me, when I think of design, it's really towards the building. How does it look? Does sound fall into that design element?
Commissioner Anderson, thank you for asking that. We review the design, as you stated, for buildings, but part of the review of design is how it is integrated to the surrounding area. So noise does have an effect on that, and through design, there are ways to mitigate noise such as moving things around in the site if possible due to noise concerns, or there's been adding trees in the past, or having noise barriers or acoustic materials that help with noise to address concerns. So while the noise ordinance is under the municipal code, it still applies to our design review.
Yes, Commissioner Bianchi.
Thank you, Chairman. So I guess my curiosity would be in regards to the noise and some questions I've got regarding the noise study and methodology. I'm wondering, is it best to hear from the applicant first, or do we want to go with those questions now and hear some of that feedback?
I think if we don't have any further questions for Stephanie, then we would invite the applicant to come up and make a presentation if he cares to. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
wait, there's one more.
Oh.
I just have one question with regards to parking. Obviously, it's already pretty full there usually when there's different events happening. Has there been any conversation around additional parking, or what that looks like, or how this may impact the parking?
Yeah, Commissioner Simon. The parking has been addressed and was part of the lease agreement discussions of having a shared parking. For if there are times that the parking, I guess, there are issues, it is town-owned property, and it's what Parks and Rec does discuss that. So John Kennedy can also speak to that for a bit of what to do with the overflow of parking. There is that a phase 2 portion that can hold overflow parking, but it's been addressed that there are uses that at times can have high intense parking, such as tournaments for the baseball or soccer games. So it has been discussed with Parks and Rec Department.
Yes. Thank you, Vice Chair Simon. Certainly there's future phase 2 requirements from the developer to add additional parking spots at that time. We are all committed. I know working with the users of the park, AZ Ice, the developer, and the existing sports user groups, there's an interest that nobody wants to have parking issues. So I think there's a commitment to make sure that we can mitigate whatever issues we can on those occasions when parking is the challenge. There are almost 1,000 parking spots on site, and there are times certainly that it is more challenging than others, and we're certainly very very willing to work through whatever options we can to make it work for everybody.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Thank you, Chairman. I was actually, while the Parks and Rec representative was up, I was going to see if I
Oh,
could ask another question. So I think based on the comments that we've read and received, I think some folks were talking about emissions and fumes and things like that. My question to staff would be, do we think that section 14.3 of the lease, does that address some of the environmental concerns potentially regarding those emissions and any sort of recourse for study?
Commissioner Bianchi, thank you for your question. I cannot admit that I know every single section by heart, so please allow me to look at 14.3 real quick.
That's fine, and if you want to get back to us
That would probably be
afterwards,
best if I could do that. That
I'm
would
perfectly
be
fine
glad to
with
do
that.
so.
Yep.
Thank you.
okay. Okay, with that, we'll invite the applicant to come up. Stephanie, thank you.
Thank you. You just full screen mode. You can just push this down arrow.
And please state your name and town of residence.
Good evening, Chairman Bloomfield and members of the commission. My name is Ben Cooper, and I represent Santana Adventure Park. I'm actually a partner involved in it, and I am a Gilbert resident. And in fact, I think it's probably best if I just started with who we are. I've lived in Gilbert for 38 years now. When I came, there were 7,000 people, and I think one stoplight that was on loan to Gilbert from the county. So I kind of have seen everything that could happen here in this town, and most of the folks that are here, I think they're my future customers. That's probably why they're here. Most of them probably have moved in after I've been here. So I'm grateful to, have so many new neighbors. Also, my partner, I've got a couple that are on the line. Todd Thornton is our Castle Golf kind of representative. He's an East Valley resident forever as well, and he designs and builds and operates these kind of fun parks. Also on the team is Denny Barney, Jason Barney. Probably heard of the Barney family. They're also longtime Gilbert residents. They've grew up here, raised their families here. Now they even have grandkids, and their family's responsible for some of the things that I think Gilbert's most proud of: the Circle G developments, Val Vista Lakes, Santan Village area. And it goes on and on and on. Some of our premier kind of things that we have here in Gilbert. All of us are deeply invested in the Gilbert area, more so personally than we are even financially. This community means a lot to us. So that's just kind of a quick overview as to who we are. I'll fly through this. You guys know the area that we're in. We're right at the doorstep of the entertainment district in Gilbert, even the central business district of Gilbert. And there's all these different entertainment uses that are right there, and in fact, even on property. Crossroads Park, from what we've been told by Parks Department over the time that we've been talking with them, it's a well-traveled park. It's well-loved. It's a very busy place and enjoyed by so many people in Gilbert. And it just felt like this was a perfect place to complement what's already going on there with Arizona Ice, the soccer, the hockey, the figure skating, all of that. Nearly 20,000 vehicles are going by right now each day there on Santan Village Parkway, which you can see is a 6-lane arterial right adjacent to our site, transitions to Greenfield Road to the north and heads up to US 60. Really one of the primary connections between US 60 and the Santan Village kind of area. So it's a heavily traveled arterial. 6 years ago, 2015, Gilbert put out an RFP looking for recreational uses, different from but complementary to those that were on the site at Crossroads Park. And they also wanted to enhance economic development. We found out about that RFP and decided that we had an idea that we thought that was missing in Gilbert. Something wholesome, something fun, something family-oriented that would get the kids off of their screens and out with their families, creating some memories. And so we responded to the RFP, went through the process with a few others that had responded, and Gilbert selected us. They chose us, and we felt very grateful for that because we think that they saw the same thing that we saw. This was going to be something that's much needed in our community. So since 2015, there's been a lot of opportunities for us to be in front of the public and on different agendas. I've counted like 10 different touch points over the years where we have been on a public agenda, town council, parks board, neighborhood meeting, the list goes on right in front of you guys as well. And so this certainly is a project that's been in the works for a while, as was mentioned earlier. A lot of news coverage over the time, and we appreciate our media, the media for keeping the public kind of up to date on it. And then obviously social media has been, if you look at the posts that are there, from what I can tell, 80% of them are very positive, and people are very much looking forward to this in Gilbert. So a lot of questions about the approved uses. These uses are approved. They were approved a long time ago, and we've been working under that assumption as we have this binding lease with the town for 50 years, really. And these uses are, obviously the ones that we've proposed to here in this plan, phase 1, mini golf, go-kart, splash pad, concessions. But there's a whole host of other uses that are allowed right now under the lease. We decided not to pursue them at this point, but there's an opportunity in the future if we choose to. And of course, we'll work with the town on that and work with the neighbors. And we'll, try to develop the best park we can based on the uses that are currently allowed by the lease that we have signed with the town. We see this as a very positive thing for Gilbert, family-friendly, wholesome, recreational stuff that's a great addition. Activates this parcel that has sat vacant for so long and would, probably generate noise no matter what use it was, right? Once it gets programmed. Creates an all-day experience for families. We know a lot of people go for tournaments. They get on the property and then they got to wait a few hours till their other kid plays, and so they're driving off property, going to get lunch, coming back, and there's just a lot of traffic and a lot of commotion there at the park. We think it'd be fun to keep some of those people there and to give them an opportunity to eat or do something fun while they're waiting for their next tournament. Obviously there's a lease where there's payments to the town. They share in revenues with us. So the better we do, the better the town does, and the better the entire community does from a reduction of tax base or tax issues or revenue, I guess, to the town is the positive there. Public splash pad. This is something at first we were like, I don't know if we want to do that, and we kind of worked through that, and we actually decided that this is really going to be a positive for the town in this specific part of town and for our park. And so we are providing a free splash pad that people can use anytime we're open, free of charge. No questions asked. Come in and use the splash pad. Charity tournaments, there's a discount for residents. I won't go through it all, but that's just some of the benefits for Gilbert. The layout you've looked at, you've seen. Stephanie did a great job, and by the way, the town staff, whether it's Parks Department, Planning Department, City Manager's Office, whoever, has been wonderful to work with this entire time. We're grateful for the input that they've provided, and we've made adjustments, as Stephanie ran through a minute ago. We put the track as far away as we could. We removed the fireball, redesigned the golf sound system and effects, so they're localized. The golf, and I can talk about it a little bit more in a second, but the golf is really, you're kind of entering a stage. This is a little bit of a theatrical thing that's going on. And you're entering a stage, and there's kind of a story that's being told as you go through the 18 holes. And there's a little bit of sound that's kind of related to some of the things that you're seeing as you go along. But that's localized to those holes, because we don't want a surprise on hole 9 to be given away to those that are putting on hole 1. And so things are localized. The speakers are such, they're directed such that sound does not spill off outside of the course. Trees, let's see, some of the other things that I think Stephanie already went through. We've tried to be good stewards with the waterfalls and reduce the size of those, the block fence against the dog park. You've seen most of these. And we've tried to react to your comments as it relates to architecture. Stephanie mentioned that. A couple of just kind of images of what it'll look like potentially. And you guys can happy to make these available for anyone to see later as well. You've seen this also. Landscape plan, we talked about the trees that we added out along Santan Village. We thought some extra screening and buffering would be well received by the neighbors, so we did that. Obviously addressed the dog park, and then we added some stuff up along the top area there so that there isn't such a rough drop off as it goes to phase 2. Oops, went the wrong way. So the track is across a busy arterial from the nearest house. So we're at least 215 feet away, 275 feet away from kind of the next house. And so this is as far away as we can put a track. And it's obviously adjacent to a very busy arterial, as we mentioned earlier. A lot of questions about what kind of carts we're going to run. 1- and 2-seater family carts. These are the kinds that you remember going and with your kids or when you were a kid. These are just the small carts. They're family style. You don't necessarily need a driver's license or anything like that. They use the Honda GX 270 motor, which has the latest emissions technology that's EPA certified. And really, Honda prides itself, I know there's a lot of engine makers out there, but Honda prides itself on trying to make it as quiet and as clean as possible. This application, this motor is used in many other applications, including generators and other settings. And so they are finally focused at trying to make this as quiet as possible. We had modeled the silent version, which runs at 79 dBA when you're 7 meters away. And as our sound consultant started looking into this a little bit more, they actually called the manufacturer to verify the data that they had and found out that there's actually a quieter version, the super silent. And so we're happy to use that cart instead or something equivalent to that, which provides a further reduction. Probably the primary question I've been asked by everybody is, why not electric, right? And as somebody who owns an electric car and has driven it for more than 2 years and just loves it to death and never wants to buy another internal combustion engine vehicle, I can say that I really did advocate for electric carts on this track. Unfortunately, as we've done the digging and looked into it, they are unproven in an outdoor environment like this in Arizona, the harsh desert climate. They are great inside, and I've driven them, and I love them. They're awesome. But out here, they're just not Tesla technology. So they're just not proven in the Arizona environment. And even the sales rep, who would make more money if we had bought an electric cart from him, told us, not really sure that that's going to work for you there. So that's why. And they're not as quiet as everybody thinks. They do have a high-pitched noise that's a little bit annoying sometimes, and there's obviously tire squealing as well. Our study, I don't think we could have picked a better group to do this. They've done over 5,000 sound studies and all over the country. They're the largest firm here in Arizona. They've got one of the coolest sound chambers that you can find anywhere. They lecture at ASU. They're expert witnesses. They're on call with cities. These guys are legit. They know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about, and they're not, this isn't their first rodeo. And so we really were lucky that we found them. And it's actually a Gilbert business, so that was nice too. They found, of course, as we've already described, no violation of the Gilbert noise ordinance is going to happen here. No violation. We'll talk through that. I think Stephanie already mentioned it. But it's important to note that it's already 7 decibels quieter than the average background noise that the folks are hearing in their backyards adjacent to Greenfield or Santan Village Parkway. If there was no sound out there and it was just our carts that were running, it would be, they'd register at 46 dBA in somebody's backyard. However, what's going on out there right now, 53 to 62 is what was measured. So we're quieter than what's going on out there, even at the quietest moment at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night. So this is a very conservative study. And in fact, they've modeled it where our carts were full throttle around the track at all times, which of course we know isn't going to happen. The code, 55 decibels measured inside somebody's house during the day is the limit that you can have. If you were inside and you measured it and there's a noise source. If it's greater than 55, you're violating code. At night, it's 45. But, and we're not, because I just told you where we're at, 47. But when you go inside and you close your doors, you close your windows and actually do the measure per the code, you need to take 20 decibels off. So actually the ambient noise with our carts is only 23 to 26. So no mitigation is necessary per the code. Stephanie showed this. The current in the future, there is literally 1 decibel. I put my glasses on. A couple of homes might get a little bit, 1 decibel, which if you ask the sound guys, they're going to tell you that it takes at least 3 to notice that there is any sound difference at all in your ear. So your outside levels are less than city traffic, kind of around normal conversation level, and your inside noise levels that they're going to experience are like a library, basically. That's what it shows. So it's what you're hearing now, basically. It's what you're hearing now. So the traffic study that we had done also was required before we did the lease, and looked at that very closely. And really what it says here is, with or without the project, the Knox Greenfield intersection is challenged. It's already struggling. We all know that. I drive this street every day on my way to the office. I understand what's going on there. It's already a problem, whether you put 1 more car on Knox or 0. It's already a problem. And so the town noticed that, and they put in their CIP a project to address the intersection. That is coming up next year. The funding is there for design, and construction will come as soon after that as they can. So yes, it's an issue, and it's been addressed, or it will be addressed. Parking. I thought there was 600. I'm glad John told us there's about 1,000 spaces there. We're required. We're not as big a use as everyone thinks. This isn't Disneyland Park or anything. This is a small mom and pop kind of place. We are not generating near as much traffic as everyone would be worried about. And our lease looked at that, looked at what's in the park, and requires us to add 28 new spaces with phase 2. And we've already started planning and thinking about that, and that's not a problem at all. Lighting, Stephanie did a great job of just saying that we're meeting code. We've got the full cutoff. There won't be anything that crosses the boundaries. I'm going to suggest here that when we move forward here, we want to be good neighbors. We are neighbors. We live in Gilbert. We're invested here and work nearby, all of that. I would love for us to sit down with the town, the neighboring HOAs, so they can send representatives. We would love that. That'd be the most important group. Arizona Ice, the sports leagues, and form kind of a regular group that just kind of gets together and talks about what's going on in the park, or the issues that maybe we didn't anticipate or anything like that. And they may not even be caused by us. It could be anything. But I think that good neighbors ought to get together and have civil discourse about stuff and work proactively together. So that's kind of our suggestion at this point. And I think with that, that's a quick summary. Not a very quick summary, but that was a summary of kind of the project to date. And we're just excited to be here. We're grateful for Gilbert. We're grateful for the overwhelming support that's outside of this room, I guess, tonight, that is very excited to have something like this here in Gilbert for their families and for their grandkids and all of that. We think it's going to be just a fun little thing to add to what you can do here in Gilbert with your family. So thank you very much, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Please, Vice Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Cooper, I just have one question for you. I keep hearing 22-car course. Or will there be 22 cars at a single time on the course? Or is that you're going to have 22 cars and there might be 10 or 11 running at any given time?
Yeah, so it's actually 21 cars, but we ended up accidentally putting 22 in our original submission, and that's the number that's gone through. We're buying 21 cars. In theory, you could run 21 cars at a time, but you won't. It's not operationally efficient to do that. You need to be loading cars while other people are out racing. So it's probably going to be 10 or 11 carts that are out there, tops. We're loading the others. they bring in others, those go out. That's kind of how it'll be.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Cooper? Yes, Mr. Bianchi, Commissioner.
Would this be the appropriate time for noise? Is your consultant on the line as well?
He's actually here, and
Oh, okay.
be happy to have him come down, Commissioner Bianchi.
Yeah, because I'm trying to still get a little more comfortable with the noise methodology and what was used in the study, so.
You're looking at me like I don't know.
We can give it a shot.
And let all that money go to waste while he's sitting there.
Good evening, Robert Pearson with MD Acoustics.
Thank you, sir, for being here. So one of the questions I had, and I probably will have a series if you just kind of bear with me here, is the noise decibel level an average increase over a 24-hour period, and that would include periods of non-operation such as late night or early morning? Or is it based kind of more on a go-kart pass as a single event?
So the way this is done is it's an hourly LEQ. So it's an hourly average over an hour period. We did also, and it's in the report, we do show what the average is over a 24-hour period. But for the model, it's looking at the lowest, the quietest nighttime, the quietest hourly average given any time of the day during operational hours, and then compared to an average, so a 1 hour average.
So primarily just operational hours only?
Yep, just operational hours.
Okay.
We did not take into consideration, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, because it would not be running during those times. We only looked at the time, we have data for those times. However, we only looked and compared to the time when it would actually be active.
Okay. And my next question is there any sort of decibel penalty for nighttime go-kart operations that's built into the model? Or does that 53 decibel kind of at that lowest starting level, is that what was used to factor that in?
There is not a, I do not believe there's a penalty on that, as not required in the code.
Okay. And then, so on the noise receiver points that you showed specifically on the residential lots, if they're outside, were those outside and external? And does the modeling take that into account at ground level? I'm just wondering what the differentiation would be at ground level compared to noise at a second story, potentially with windows open.
So it is taken at the facade of the home, obviously. So we put it at the facade of the home about, which is standard, it's 5 feet is a measuring distance per standard measuring procedures. In the model, you can see that we actually have for homes that are 2-story homes, there's 2 levels on there, which represents a first floor and a second floor. Does that answer the question?
Well, I'm thinking, is there much of a spillover effect between a CMU wall that would reflect or absorb some of that sound compared to if you're at a higher second level where that noise would be more impactful?
Correct. So the model does have, with the second floor, it does take into account, in our model, you can see that there is a wall that's been put there that we have measured out. And so it takes into that account of that wall being there, and then anything up above it, which a 2-story home would typically be above that. So it does take that into consideration.
Okay. And then the final one was, so would landscaping or any CMU walls or anything adjacent to Greenfield Road, would that provide any other additional sound mitigation, kind of like what you're implementing near the dog park, or is it minimal impact at all?
We did look at that possibility of putting a 6-foot wall.
Let me show you. Let me go to that slide.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we did put a 6-foot wall on the on that property line. You can see it there on the with berm wall at street, and it provided about a 1 dB decrease, which is a non-perceptible decrease. So it's actually better to take a look at mitigating the actual source of the noise, which would be the carts, as opposed to putting a wall there.
Yeah, and that would be my concern, is that single event noise when the carts were running, not that average over time.
So would that, I apologize. I'm sorry. What do you?
So I'm just wondering, when you were saying it's basically a 1 decibel difference, is that saying spread over that 24-hour period? Or is that more of a single event occurrence when the go-karts are running kind of during each pass or each turn of the
So that would be over the 1 hour period. The way that it's also modeled is the track is modeled as if carts were continuously going around that thing back to back, bumper to bumper, all the way around all the time. That's how traffic is modeled. That's how anything with a mobile motor or anything like that that moves in a line is modeled.
Okay, so continuous operations.
Yeah, so it's continuous operation, just back to back.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, can I have a couple of questions down here?
Yes, please, Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. The sound consultant was actually the person I really wanted to talk to tonight. So there's been a lot of talk about that this park would create, DBAs between 53 and 62. So we're hearing all these numbers. Can you explain exactly what, or can you give an example of what a 53 to 62 DBA would be? So from my experience, as an architect, a lot of my projects I work on are multifamily. So DBA levels that I'm dealing with is, I have to design walls for 50 DBA going vertically and 50 DBA going horizontally. And for people that are really not understanding, what a DBA is and what these numbers mean, can you help us can you help us understand that a little bit more? And my second question is, when I was back in architecture school, if I'm remembering correctly, if you go from 1 DBA to 2 DBA, doesn't mean you're doubling the sound. There's some sort of there's a coefficient in there that's not saying, well, 1 DBA is this, and if we go to 2 DBA, it's this. It's a lot lower. So can you help us understand a little bit more of DBAs and the numbers that are being thrown at us tonight?
Yeah, to help understand, kind of that, like you see on the screen here, the 53 to 55 dBA, according to a typically used FHWA noise thermometer, to give you an idea, that would be right in the range of a dishwasher in the next room, or even typical conversation 3 feet away. So that kind of gives you an idea of how that would sound if you're trying to compare it to something. Yeah, if it takes a 3 dB increase in order to perceive a difference. So simply going 1, the human ear doesn't perceive that. That's why we say it's a nominal increase when it's 1, 2, but once you get to 3, then you can kind of perceive it, but it would just be a minor increase. Does that help?
Okay. Commissioner Jones.
Yeah, question is just when you're modeling the sound, are you talking about the cart engine, or are you also including like a screeching tire?
We are looking at the cart engine because that is what we have reference data for. In particular, is the cart engine itself. The difference between the cart engine and the squealing tires is the squealing tire is a higher pitch noise, where the engine's going to be a lower pitch noise, which travels a lot further and a lot easier. So typically, you would get a momentary increase with that high pitched tire squeal, but predominantly would be heard, at a distance would be the engine itself. So that is what we look at because it would be the predominant noise source.
Yes, Commissioner Bunn.
So just based on your experience and expertise, I just wanted to understand, from my understanding of, from the Federal Highway Administration of looking at vehicle speeds versus DBA levels as it would relate to the change in speed of highway, is it safe to say that a car going 45 miles an hour, approximately 50 feet away, is going to have levels in the 65 range? And that might be too specific, but if you could just elaborate on, because what I'm trying to understand is, given how far these carts are away and the fact that this road is going where people are clearly going greater than 45 even, that what is the sound level that would just be coming directly from those cars?
That's that's really hard to just to say without going and actually doing calculations and things of that nature. What I can say though is we took a noise level measurement over a few days period, so 24 hours. We measured at 53, and we attributed that to the cars. So you could tell that the cars cause it to get up to 53. And that's kind of the base that we went with is that the predominant noise would have been the cars, and you could think at about I believe it was 300 feet away, it was 53 decibels.
Okay.
And according to the just to give it a better idea, according to the FHWA, I believe it was it's about 60 decibels is what's common for a busy roadway.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Chair, can I ask one more question? This
Yes,
one's more
please.
geared for staff. When Mr. Cooper was up making his presentation, he made a comment that regarding neighborhood meetings. Is a neighborhood meeting required for design review cases? Or is that optional? And if it is required, then was one conducted and what was the outcome of that?
For design review cases, neighborhood meetings are not required. But there was a neighborhood meeting in 2016 when the project was under discussion before the lease agreement was signed. It wasn't with the planning department, it was with Parks and Rec department to discuss the project.
Okay, so there was a neighborhood meeting that happened in 2016.
Correct.
And chances are it didn't involve a cart track.
The go-kart track was not discussed as a design, but it was noted in the meeting notes that one neighbor did say that they were not in favor of a go-kart track. So they discussed the types of uses that could be part of the lease agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions of staff or the applicant? Okay. We will move ahead with the public hearing. The vice chair has been up here like he's dealing cards. It's pretty amazing to watch, but we have, what I'll do is I'll read through the ones who do not wish to speak, and I'll say their name and what their position is, and then we'll get to those who wish to speak. And before we get started, anybody who comes up will have 3 minutes to speak at this point. And if you've donated your time to someone, then that person will get 10 minutes to speak. And we're assuming that they're going to speak for a group, just in the interest of time. And if you're coming up to speak and somebody else has already made the similar comments, then say, my comment was about this, this, and this, and we'll call it good and sit down. Just because you have 3 minutes doesn't mean you have to take it all, is my point. So we have John Enright, who says he cannot wait for the entertainment park, and he's in favor. And he is a lone man in the desert, given up here by these cards. So Ted Apel said he is opposed. Liz Apel is opposed. Christine Dees, this will ruin my neighborhood of 20 years. Charles Gerard, I'm opposed. Elena Stump, I am opposed. Bill Donovan, I am opposed. Sue Donovan, go-karts belong in a commercial area, not residential. I am opposed. William Cordero, unacceptable plan, noise, pollution, lights, traffic, I am opposed. Christine Cordard, I am opposed. It is not fair or reasonable to put this near homes. Last name is Kraiss. Can't make it out. So is opposed, and please no go-karts. Okay. And Tim and Ann Strong are opposed and do not wish to speak. Jennifer Crandall is opposed. Noise and home values are the reasons. Todd Millsap is opposed. Too close to homes, noise, traffic, etc. at late hours of operations. Lori Dunn, noise and traffic, terrible location for go-karts. Marge Garner, not enough space or parking for this item. I am opposed. Kenneth Garbinski, I'm opposed to noise, property value decrease, effect on adjacent park. I'm opposed to this item. Diana DeBruin, do not build, not a good location, keep residential. I'm opposed. William Riston, a go-kart track does not fit the present use or future use. I'm opposed. Shirley Riston, not suitable to our residential area, noise, gas emissions, lights, traffic, parking, etc. Melanie Young, I do not want this track. I'm opposed. Okay. What's the next group? Okay. Okay. We have a group that has donated time to Randy Nelson, Don Jordan, Jeffrey Book, Michael Hendricks, and Cody Claridge. And so we'd like to have Randy Nelson come up and speak for 10 minutes. Is Randy Nelson here? Okay. Okay. Mr. Nelson, we need you to lean into that microphone and almost eat it. There you go. Well, not quite that far, but yeah. It's off. Sorry about that. All that.
There we go.
I want to hear your first comment, though. It sounded interesting. So.
Well, I was just saying that by the time you see this, you will swear you saw David Copperfield tonight. So, no, I am indeed opposed. One of the things that I discovered, sorry, I'm crinkling here. I am the father of 4 daughters, all grown now, but spent a lot of time around parks like this. My wife and I bought our forever home 12 years ago after she retired as a 21-year Chicago police officer. We came out to avoid snow. We love the location because the kids across the street in the park are laughing and cheering. We hear the cheers from the soccer fans that swarm crossroads. It's a great location. We even we are huge long-distance train fans, which you have to try if you've never done that. So we even like the sound of the train. To us, it's a romantic sound and it's kind of soothing, and so it's a great location. But then in 2016, I go to a neighborhood meeting and discover what usage is going to be back there. I am the one who asked about the go-karts in 2016 and was told no, absolutely not. So now I find my bedroom 200 feet from 22 gasoline-powered go-karts. That park will define what me and the other 27 houses that are about 200 feet away, that's going to define what hours we sleep. Think of that for a moment. 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. weeknights, 8 a.m. to midnight weekends. That is going to determine when I sleep. That shouldn't be inflicted upon anybody. The quality of life, the noise pollution, the air pollution is why this has not happened in 60 years, 60 years in the southwestern United States. And I can show you that. I'm shocked that this has been proposed since this has never been done. Never in 60 years. Anyway, going back to my 4 daughters, I spent a lot of time at these parks because I loved them. And this is a great project for Gilbert, but a horrible location. And again, I'll show you why that has never happened before. What I did, this sent me on a Google search of go-kart tracks in Arizona, thinking I don't remember seeing houses. I turned up at, what I did with Google, it's a straight line search. I didn't search for anything specific. I shouldn't say it that way. I put in family fun centers with go-karts, for example. And I took whatever was listed. The only thing I skipped was a repair shop or something like that. So this is every single hit that Google has found. I found 20 of them in Arizona, and surprise, surprise, 0 are near housing. No outdoor tracks in Arizona are near housing. There is a couple exceptions like Omega up in Talking Stick, an indoor go-kart track, and that's in a shopping center. The backs of those stores back up against house. That's the closest thing. Out of those 20, like I say, 0 near housing in Arizona. I found that interesting. So that took me off to doing the same thing in the 5 surrounding states. So I Google search, actually I'm skipping a part. I Google searched the address, then in turn I went to Google Earth and looked around. You get aerial views, you get street views, you can see everything that's there. I did that 20 times in Arizona. Then I went to Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Southern California. Here's the fun part. What this basically is going to show, here is our Nobody can hear you. 20 go-karts. Here is 130 more go-kart tracks in those 5 states. Oh, thank you very much. Then I added the 30 projects that are on Castle Golf's website. 30 projects on Castle Golf website. That is 180 projects. Of those, five of them can see houses. A total of 5. 1 can see a housing development out of 180. The reason for that, let's look at some of the exceptions. The exceptions are a lot of fun. Sorry. This is my favorite one. This is in North Glen, Colorado. And it shows, sorry. It basically shows a go-kart track jammed up against I-25, I'm sorry. that was built in 2001. Condos built immediately adjacent to the freeway, immediately adjacent to the go-kart tracks, was built in 2010, 9 years later. Not a good comp. This one is in Dickinson, Texas, and it looks like we have a river with 3 houses, a go-kart track across the river, a storage facility, the big orange doors, and all industrial. And if you look on Google Earth, the house across the street from the go-kart track is almost under the freeway. Not a comp. Here's the other one. Here's the other that can see houses. It's in Houston. Again, butted up against a freeway. And what it looks like, essentially, is what I always called old country houses. You know, these houses out in the country that were scattered, and the city grew out to meet them. Track was built in 1993. The houses were built in 1935. Not a comp. Oh, here's a fun one. Here's Castle's example. It is on the Jersey Shore, where you can reach your arm out and touch your neighbor in all directions. Not a comp. Here's the comp. The only one vaguely similar to our situation in 180 projects in 5 southwestern states. That's a track. There's a subdivision right here. Oddly enough, both of them were built in 1959. I find that really interesting. And both of them butt up against the Pomona Freeway. Not a comp. So what that means, all of these go back in.
Mr. Nelson,
Back in.
your 10 minutes are up, so if you want to make a couple of points, that would be good.
There are 0 instances of a project like this being approved. Ooh, I almost forgot. This is where I put on my bling. 111 cities compromise that 100 and in the US, 150. All of them said no. Air pollution, sound pollution, light pollution. These projects do not belong in a neighborhood. They do not belong in a neighborhood. It should be in the regional park. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Up next, we'll hear Sandra Avery, who's speaking on behalf, Rebecca Poole, Colleen Darrington, Gary Sarrow, Kenny Dees, Roger Holmes, Monica Weiser, Peggy Gerard, Donna Weiser, Carol Hendricks, Lisa Jemgoshian, and Fran Stavros. And if I butchered your name, I apologize. All right.
I've taken off this mask, which is the first thing I've done in a couple of years. But anyway, and I'm nervous. I'm timed at about 9 minutes and 30 seconds, so hopefully I can stick to that. My name is Sandra Avery. I live in Cottonwood Crossings. I'm going to summarize my thoughts and experiences throughout this project. I want to address the fast pace that this project seems to have gone in the last month. I realize the lease was signed in 2017, but it's my understanding that it has been revised multiple times. The public notification for this meeting has fallen short. We really only became acutely aware of this actual project because someone who enjoys reading the Planning Commission information happened to see it on the agenda. In the last week, yes, the last 1 week, the community is organized through Nextdoor, knocking on doors, passing out flyers to make residents aware of the proposed project. I would say 90% of the people we spoke to had no idea about the extensiveness of this project. We created an online petition on March 31st, and today, only 7 days later, we have over 546 signatures and comments. This in itself, can we pause for a second? I've got to get a drink, if that's okay. Thank you. This in itself should be a powerful evidence that Crossroads Park is not the appropriate place for this project. You have all been sent the links to the petition. I hope you took the time at least to read at least some of the hundreds of comments from residents opposed to the project in this particular area. I don't know where you all live, but I'm assuming that it's not Cottonwood Crossing or Greenfield Lakes. People have been calling us NIMBYs, which stands for Not in My Backyard, which I guess you could say that, but we don't want it in anybody's backyard. I read or tried to read, and I won't be as sophisticated, about the whole acoustics report in the proposal. I don't pretend to be a mathematician or a physicist or even anyone that halfway understands how to measure the sound of all those things, so I went with common sense. In the report, it states that the go-karts are 40 to 50 decibels and 100 feet. It also states that the sounds of the go-karts and other sounds will be muffled by the traffic on Greenfield, and that the residents should not, would not, but should not hear the go-karts. I read that and was really surprised. I called 2 different outdoor go-kart tracks in Arizona, and in particular spoke with the man who runs the track out in Glendale. His name's Curtis. I asked him specifically about decibels and had him explain it to me. We had a long conversation, and he explained that they have an agreement with the county or the city that they can't go higher than 91 decibels at 100 feet. He says that he is consistently in the low 80s and measures it a couple times a week. I called and spoke with Mike Dickerson, Sr. of MD Acoustics on Monday. We talked for a long time about the report. It wasn't until the end of our conversation that he informed me that it was actually his son who had done the study. I asked him where they came up with the 40 to 50 decibel at 100 feet figure, and he informed me that that information was given to him from the developer. I asked him if he took go-karts out to Crossroads Park to measure, and he said no. I said, how can there be such a difference between those other parks that I called, saying in the low 80s at 100 feet, and his figure, 40 to 50 decibels at 100 feet? He again stated that that information was given to him by the developer and based on 3 possible engines that might or might not be used in the go-karts for his project. I asked him if he truly believes that the traffic on Greenfield will muffle the sound of the go-karts when I can hear the crack of a baseball and a bat and hear the music from the restaurant at Arizona Ice. He explained to me about predominant noise, which basically means the loudest noise is the noise we will hear. I asked him if the sound will be muffled by Greenfield, shouldn't that sound muffle the music from the restaurant and the yelling at the baseball games? He said no, because those are predominant sounds. I said, so basically, you based your report on information that was given to you by the developer, set up your sound equipment on a Thursday in February during COVID, and ran your numbers and came up with the impression that the neighbors would not hear go-karts because Greenfield Road would muffle the sound, even though the go-karts would be the predominant sound. He was quiet. I wanted to bring attention to this conversation because I believe it brings into question the validity of the information that was given to the acoustics company in order to provide an accurate acoustic report. Next, I would like to talk about parking. When we were going through the water park and polarized process, I think it was someone referenced it, parking was a big issue, and we actually had specific numbers for the town of Gilbert, the amount of parking places that were required depending on square footage of the activity, what the activity was, people, how many people they were expecting to be there. As it is now, on any given Saturday, when baseball and soccer are in full swing, the parking lot is completely full with people parking on Sherry Drive in front of people's homes. Last Saturday, Randy Nelson went out and walked the parking lot at 10 o'clock in the morning. He counted 7 empty parking places. In the proposal, it says that the Adventure Park will utilize 599 existing spaces. I spoke with Stephanie on Monday about parking. She told me Parks and Recs had signed off on saying there was no additional need for parking. I called and spoke with John Kennedy of Parks and Recs, who has been working with the Planning Commission. I asked him if he was the one who signed off saying no extra parking was needed, and he said yes, he was. I asked him what he was basing his decision on, and he told me the traffic study from 2017. I asked him if he personally had gone out to Crossroads Park looking at the parking situation on a typical weekend, and he said no, he had not been to the parking lot. He did say that he asked a couple of his staff members what they thought about parking and took that information into consideration. I asked him if he was aware that people were parking on Sherry Drive in front of people's homes. He said he was not aware of that. I said, so if a man can go out there and find 7 empty parking places on a Saturday morning, and the proposal says that they are going to utilize 599 existing spaces, how are you going to fit 592 cars into 7 empty spaces? I told him when we were considering the water park, the polar ice, that they had very specific projections of how many people would be coming to each facility. As I said before, I've tried to get the projected visitor numbers, and no one seems to have that information. On a common sense level, for a business that is promising to pay the town of Gilbert a certain amount of money and also a percentage based on their revenue, you would think that they would have some idea how much revenue they would be expected to have coming in. The dog park, again, we have been given lots of different answers. The dog park will stay, the dog park will go, the dog park will be relocated, we will build fences around the dog park. With these people who have been going to that dog park for years and years, they have a routine. They walk around the neighborhood, they walk over to the dog park, they visit with other neighbors, their dogs play, and they walk home. It's quiet, it's comfortable, it's peaceful, and it's an important part of their daily routine. If the dog park stays, the noise, the traffic, the car traffic, the human traffic, the music, the go-karts, the horns, the loudspeakers, etc., will not only be frightening for the dogs, but will absolutely destroy the people's otherwise peaceful, important daily routine. The miniature golf course does not seem to be a major concern for neighbors, other than the fact that throughout the proposal there's conflicting information about what the actual theme is. Different attractions that have been removed and modified depending on the noise level, depending on exceptions to loud music, etc. But again, we really have no clear picture of the miniature golf, what the miniature golf will look like. The splash pad sounds like a wonderful place. My understanding is it will be open to the public. Does that mean parents will drop their kids off at the drop-off section and leave them unattended and unsupervised? Finally, I'm asking you all to close your eyes for a minute. You're sitting in your favorite spot in your home or in your backyard. Now imagine 22 gas-powered go-karts going around a track with loudspeakers announcing the beginning and the ending of those races, horns, music playing, adults and kids yelling and laughing and talking, sound effects from animated plane crashes, and other unknown event sound effects, PA systems with random announcements, and again, 26 gas-powered go-karts going around and around and around a track for 14 to 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, 350 plus days a year. Please raise your hand if you are willing to trade your homes with any of the families that live in those surrounding areas. I don't see any hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra. We appreciate that. There are others who still wish to speak as we continue on, and they'll have 3 minutes apiece. James Nelson. Okay. So you're trying to double dip on us? I gotcha. All right. Got your number. All right. Julie Moore. Look, yes. Yes. Right. I'm fine with that. If you want to change to you wanting to speak. Very good. You're John Enright? Come. It's your personal preference. They're going to swab it between each person anyway.
This guy
So.
over here, because he had a passionate, and the woman this here, I think she's my neighbor. Where is that person? Are you my neighbor? Okay, so I know where she lives. It's a long ways from where we're doing go-karts. My spin on it, I love the fact that everybody's here, and I love the fact that everybody's passionate. Great job. The reason I'm here is because somebody came to my door in a panic, saying that the world's going to end, and the property values are going to go down, and the taxes are going to go down, and the world's going to come to an end, and you got to get to this meeting. And I said, well, the property values are never going down, and the property taxes are never going down. You can count on that. They're always going up, right? But I love where I live. I love the fact that the ice stand's there. I love the fact that the ballparks are there. I go out at 10 at night, and I hear the screams and the cheers of the ballpark. I love it. I love it. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel people are having a happy. I can go over to the dog park. I can go over to the ice den. I can go over to the bar over there. The park's next to me. I live right next to her. She just spoke. I want to ask you guys how lucky you are. If anybody has kids, and the guy that first spoke and he had 4 kids, how lucky would he feel when the grandkids come over and you walk across and you can go to the ice park, you can go play some baseball, you can go to the ballpark, and wow, you can play some miniature golf, you can race some go-karts. I feel lucky to be there. I feel lucky for the kids around the neighborhood. You grow up there, they worked at and that's the perfect place. They got the dog park. You got the ice. You got the soccer fields. You got this down the way. You got Top Golf. Next thing you got the entertainment thing. Next thing is where I live is like is like I really love where I live, and I love the part that this is coming in. She doesn't live that close to where the go-karts are going to go. She won't even hear them. And you can make everything. The reason I'm here tonight, and I think I'm the only person, is because sometimes a small group of people, the squeaky wheel makes. We've seen this all with all these protests and everything. The small group of people that join, have the people here because somebody went around saying the world's going to come to an end because there's going to be a adventure park there. We hear go-karts. We hear this. We've seen. It's an adventure park. There's going to be a water park there. There's going to be There's miniature golf there. There's going to be some go-karts there, and go-karts are, you know, you can probably hear it. The big thing about where we live, and where she lives, where he lives, is there's a big power plant. Okay, and where I live isn't that close to it, but I walk out at 10, 11, 12 midnight, and I can hear that thing, and it's pretty loud. I'm going to say the decibel level on the power plant is probably 50 or 60. What I do is I work in entertainment for golf courses and special events and Country Thunder and pro golf tournaments. And we have 150 generators running when you went to the TPC at Scottsdale. Did anybody ever get annoyed about generators? No, because you don't hear them. They blend in. Okay, just like this is going to blend in, and I feel really lucky, and I'm for the entrepreneur, and I had to come. I'm the only person here because most of the people are like me, right? Most of the people want progress. They want things to happen, but they don't get off their couch because they say, well, if it does, it does it. These people have a vendetta. They're on an agenda. They've been taught. You know, some of these people have never slept. This lady that's got up here, she hasn't slept in weeks. This is her whole if this go-kart thing happens, she thinks it's the end of the world, and it's not the end of the world. It's a good thing.
Your 3 minutes are up. So
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Julie Moore wishes to speak. Got 3 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you for giving all of us the opportunity to actually voice our opinion. My only concern is the traffic. There's a lack of a possibility to improve the traffic flow, and there's a quarter mile down the road 2 big entertainment centers and nothing next to that between Main Event and the shopping center, and I think that would be a better place for it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Kelly Stramiels. Is that right? And then Mikkel Crandall and Suzanne Ward coming up. Okay.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of our neighbors. Back in 2013, when we moved into our house with a newborn and a 2-year-old, about October of that year, there was a carnival on this same lot. I don't know if anyone remembers it. It was there for a weekend, and it was fun. And it happened to have been, I remember it specifically because my daughter was turning 3, and she thought that we put it there for her birthday, and so we kind of went with that. But when it came time at night to put her down to sleep, the sound from that carnival was coming into her room. And so she's a good sleeper. I was really blessed with my first one because she is a good sleeper. She can sleep through almost anything. She could not sleep. With that carnival there, the noise level, and we live in the area across the street in Greenfield Lakes on the park. And we can hear the noise from the parks, normal noise. We have the basketball court directly behind my house. We hear that. But when the sun goes down, the basketball court gets quiet. Our neighborhood park gets quiet. We can hear the sounds of the park from across the street, and that's not a big deal. My problem is it's going to constantly be the carnival across the street that's keeping my kids up till 10 o'clock at night. He talked about how lucky we are. I feel lucky that my kids can sleep right now. They're not going to if this goes in across the street. You're talking about the decibel levels being in the 50s. What is it with the decibel level of the squealing of the tires? What is the decibel level of people screaming in delight? What is the decibel level of the amplified music and the PA announcements? All that comes into play too, because when you're thinking about noise and sound, it's not the hum that bothers you, it's the noise, the sudden noise that jolts you out of a sleep, that interrupts what you're watching, that interrupts whatever it is you're doing in your day. We moved to Gilbert because we were looking for a more peaceful place to live, and this is not going to be it. With that go-kart, with the go-kart track, and with the other traffic that will come along with this fun park. It sounds wonderful, but not in a residential area. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for coming. Michael Crandall? Or Michael? You'll have to correct me when you come up. If I've butchered your name, just correct me. I'm okay with
No,
that.
that's pretty good. I appreciate it. It's pronounced Michael, but it's not a big deal. Thank you very much. I appreciate your guys' time and hearing all the concerns. First of all, I'm pro-business. It's great that the city is looking into extra ways to generate revenue. I think that's great. The only thing there's a few concerns and comments that I have, and I'm going to speak quick because I only have 3 minutes. But so I just don't think it's a good thing to generate revenue at the expense of the comfort of the community, right? Of your customers and your boss, so to speak, right? And just I would ask that you would just take into consideration, if this was your backyard, would you want it, right? A couple comments. The city noise requirement, it sounded like, was based off of an inside noise level, right? A lot of us spend a lot of considerable amount of time outside. We just bought a house in Cottonwoods in January. We're putting in a pool as we speak. We plan on spending a lot of time outside. I don't know that I would have bought the property there if I knew that there was going to be a gas-powered, go-kart facility right there in our backyard, right? I mean, you have to look at it. This gentleman over here previously said it wasn't going to impact values. Sure, prices might go up, but they're relative. The price next to a railroad track is not going to go up the same of the price of a house not next to the railroad track, or a go-kart, or whatever it is. Too, how many go-karts were tested in the sound test, right? Was it a single go-kart, or was it the max number of go-karts, right? The parking situation, we already know it's maxed out right now as it is. How can we consider in phase 1 not adding any parking? That is just, I'm dumbfounded. My kids played soccer there. We had a hard time finding parking there, right, as it is. And there had to have been some sort of study on parking requirements, and hopefully it wasn't based on from 10 years ago when the property was built. You can't add new things that are going to generate traffic without taking into consideration parking. I just don't understand that. The other entertainment facilities next door, Top Golf and the other entertainment, they don't share a residential street, right? There's a big difference. I'm all for developing the city, but not when it impacts residential areas, right? And I'll finish on this basically. Why not consider, I would like to propose ideas, not just complain about it. Why not at least consider adding parking to phase 1, right? That's at a minimum. Why not consider doing electric cars, right? Even if you have to put an indoor facility or cover the area or something. The biggest concern, it sounds like, is with noise. So let's work together. Let's find a way to make electric possible, right? Like make it indoors or enclose it, put a canopy around it with some walls, some soundproofing.
Michael, your 3 minutes are up.
Okay.
If you want to make a
I'll just
final
make
statement.
that, I'll
it
make
good.
that final statement. Hours of operation is a concern. Or is there going to be alcohol sold late at night? There's already, things like that. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider about this. That's all, I guess. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Micah. Just in the interest of time, just a reminder, we're here to talk about the design review of this application, not whether they can have a golf course here or a go-kart track. So if you have particular design constraints or opportunities that are concerning to you, those are all good things. And I think for the most part, you've done well, but I just want to bring that up. Okay, we've got Suzanne Ward coming up, and Matt Lewis and John DeBruin will be coming up behind her.
I am Suzanne Ward, and this is going to go in directly into my backyard, literally into my backyard.
You need to get closer to the mic.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm here because this is literally going into my backyard. We have proposed other things to them before during the meetings. Indoor batting cages. We have plenty of adults, plenty of children who play that sport. Softball, baseball, indoor batting cages. We were shooed away. I have never come to anything like this before in my life. Never had really big concerns about this. This is going to affect my quality of life. My question to you is, you have said that this is about design. Is this already a done deal? If we're only here to review the design, is this already a done deal and we just have to live with it?
As far as I know, this is a lease agreement, and that lease agreement allows for this use. So the use is allowed. It's not under our jurisdiction or our review here tonight.
So it is a done deal.
It's just an approved use. They can choose to pull out or not, but we're here to review the application as it is here tonight. We're not here to say if it's an approved use or not.
Can I read an email that I received from Stephanie this morning? Yes, I'll give you the rest of my time. I'm going to give her the rest of my time if that's okay.
That's not okay.
Okay? Well, I guess
she's had her 10 minutes.
Okay.
So.
This is the email right here. Hi, Sandra. Just that little bit.
Okay, then I will read it if I can without
Very
glasses. Hi, Sandra. Your below email is correct for the design review project that is being presented to the Planning Commission as we discussed on the phone. The Planning Commission will vote to approve, deny, or continue the DR 20-182 Santan Adventure Park project in the meeting tonight. The email response from Bridget is referring the lease agreement between the town and SAP Holdings that was signed and approved by the council in 2017. So it sounds to me from the response we got, that she got, that, yeah, you guys do have the power to do this.
We can approve or deny this case as it's presented tonight, but it's only in regard to the design of the facility, not to the uses of the facility. It's an approved use according to the lease. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So
Okay.
basically,
So we can approve or
you can
deny
approve
the design. Yes,
So
but
you
not
can
the
approve
use.
or disapprove of a golf cart. No, you can't. The golf carts is just a matter of where they're going to put everything. Basically, is what you can approve or deny. Is that correct?
It's part of the design. Yeah, I mean,
Right. So.
okay. If you're not at the dais or not speaking, then we need you to. We just can't hear you. So. Okay.
Okay.
Are you done?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Matt Lewis, John DeBruin, and Chris. Matt Lewis.
Hello. I think some of my concerns are the same as everybody else's. The noise, the traffic. I think as a design issue, it would probably best to be designed as an indoor park, being Arizona. It's 8 months out of the year. I don't know how many people are going to want to get on a go-kart track and sit in go-karts, which is why most of your outdoor karts don't seem to last very long, and the indoor kart parks do a little bit better. Also, I don't know of many outdoor miniature golf courses that last very long in Arizona as well. I know I've seen many of them that come and go. Being as it is kind of, you don't have to pay to come in either. You probably are going to have quite a bit of teens or tweens, I would imagine, under the driving age that tend to just hang out and not spend any money, which might reduce revenues, which make them not want to reinvest. And then as the miniature golf features age and deteriorate in the Arizona sun, I doubt much money will be reinvested into keeping them up and looking nice, and it's going to start to fade fast. So I just don't think it's a smart business plan. Maybe just a quick couple-year money grab when the excitement of it opening happens. And
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right. Thanks, Matt. John DeBruin, Chris. Godwez, I guess. I don't know. So, Chris, you're going to be up after John. John DeBruin, please come up.
Well, everything that's been said tonight that opposes this is exactly the way I feel.
Okay.
Because this is going to be exactly right in my backyard. And I know none of you would like to have this in your backyard. We'll be able to hear this in our house, and our quality of life will be right down the drain. It sounds like this is all going to be forced down our throats, if we like it or not. It's a dirty, sad deal. And it should have larger walls around the whole thing if they're going to cram this down our throats to cut that sound, because I know that sound's going to travel. And this should be out in a rural area. It's a nice thing that what they want to do, but this is not the place whatsoever. It's just terrible. And I guess I can't really add any more to that other than it's a dirty shame.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Chris, you're next, and then Dean Christensen and Jack Parks. It's Chris. Okay, maybe they left. I'll set it aside. Dean Christensen, Jack Parks. Are either one of you here? Okay. Come on up. Dean Christensen first.
Thank you. Don't start that timer.
I haven't.
Hi, I'm Dean Christensen, 24-year resident. I was one of the original homeowners that purchased when Greenfield Lakes was constructed. We have a lot invested. My wife and I had the fortunate privilege of just paying off our house 2 months ago. So we're pretty happy. We love it here. We love our community, and we love our quality of life. Okay, Gilbert's a wonderful place, adjacent to a lot of bike parks, and it's adjacent to a beautiful park, which we use all the time. Okay. I had the privilege of actually speaking to the president of a very successful chain of family fun centers. I won't mention his name because apparently he's quite well known. They've had these fun centers since 1970. These were his comments from me explaining the configuration, design, and the location. And we actually looked it up together on Google Maps. These are his bullet points. It's a poor location. He says in all the locations they own, they do not have any of these adjacent to residential neighborhoods, not one. By the way, they have no parks here in Arizona, so they're not a competing entity. It says when they develop family fun centers, they use the same format and they don't put them in locations like this. He could see from looking at this, they have poor access and visibility to the freeway, which is kind of a necessity for these to be successful. He says being near a park is not enough for it to be successful. He says from his observation in this industry, and they have in many go-karts, he says there's going to be too much noise backing up to residential areas. He said, in parentheses, that's being a bad neighbor. That's not what we do as a business. He says most fun centers and locations like this, he says most of them that are ill-planned like this, and that's what he said because of the location, he says they go bankrupt and they fail. Quite often it's usually private companies like this, private local investors that think that they can pull it off. He says but they'll likely fail. So if it goes bankrupt, who's going to clean that up? The city of Gilbert? Next item, page 2 in the DR 20-182 report and lease agreement. It provides for the hours of operation from 8 a.m. to 11 on weekdays and Friday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 midnight. That's like the most shocking part of this to me. I can't imagine being in my backyard or in my home and hearing that at 11 o'clock at night. I mean, if somebody has children and they're trying to put them down to bed, that's shocking to me. Now, I took a quick look at just standard park rules, Crossroads Park, any other local park here in Gilbert. Standard park rules, they open the park at 5:30 a.m., they close it at 10 a.m. That's standard park rules. They have rules against disruptive behavior, unreasonable noise, unauthorized motorized vehicles, and unauthorized parking or parking in unauthorized areas, which is clearly going to become a problem with spillover parking.
Dean?
Yes.
Your 3 minutes are up, so if you want to make a closing statement, please do
Okay,
so.
thank you. I was here when they built the freeway. A group of us, not me, but there was a class action lawsuit against the builder who misrepresented how close that freeway was going to be to the houses. They won that lawsuit. Some of those lost $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in property value because of that development. I see for those who live along Portland or close adjacent to it, they may very well lose that kind of property value. I mean, it's just a simple thing. If someone comes to look at your home and they can hear the whirring of go-karts in the background, that kills your ability to sell your home. So if anything, and I'm not acquiescing here, but if anything, please consider, as part of the design, having the courage to do something about the sound of this. That decibel level that was 45 to 50 decibels in the green zone, that's where my house is. I don't want to have to hear that every single day from morning until night. Please do something as the committee. Have the courage to do something as a committee to at least postpone this and consider doing some significant things regarding the go-kart track. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. You're up. And then Susan King and Vicki Nash.
My name is Jack Parks. I've been a homeowner in Greenfield Lakes for the past 23 years. And to the applicant, I also love Gilbert. I sent an email to Stephanie expressing my concern over the development of Santan Adventure Park. The more I looked into it, my concern changed to opposition. I have also signed a petition in opposition to the development of the park at change.org. My opposition is the same as other presenters tonight: increased noise, increased traffic, hours of operation, lack of adequate parking, decreased property value, and quite simply quality of life. Specific objections are the go-karts, gas-powered, musical lighting, miniature golf course, hours of operation, and parking. In regards to the go-karts, I understand there's been a noise study completed through modeling software. The information coming out of that study is only as good as the information put into it. I also understand that the information furnished to the company during the test was furnished to that company by Ben Cooper of Norris Design. We are all familiar with modeling from this past year dealing with COVID. If this or that happens, people will die. If some people would be hospitalized, sometimes the models are correct, sometimes the models were incorrect. We've also seen, if you follow hurricane trackings, they typically have 5 different models. Only one of the models are going to be correct. So if one of them is correct, 4 of them is incorrect. Also, we are often cautioned about using gas-powered lawn equipment, i.e. leaf blowers, and lawn mowers in the summertime, or burning fireplaces or fire pits in the wintertime because of our air quality. And then to add 22 gas-powered go-karts to the mix, 12 to 13 hours a day, seems a bit defeating in regards to both noise and pollution. I saw on the slide over here earlier that some of the design changes, or one of the design changes that was made, I think to quote the applicant, it was placed away from the neighborhood. Away is the optimum word. I thank you for your cooperation tonight and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Susan King, and then Vicki Nash and Dave Marmon on deck.
Hi there, my name is Susan King. My husband and I moved to Greenfield Lakes about 12 years ago and have thoroughly enjoyed our very quiet neighborhood. I started talking about this project on March 31st to a few of my neighbors, and then within 7 days, the petition was created to oppose this thing. And I think because we've already had over 500 signatures saying no, they're not interested, and over 40 comments of why people are not interested, I just don't think it's a very good thing to put in our own neighborhood. I think it would be a much better thing to put somewhere like out by the airport where noise isn't a problem. And as long as they have a whole list of other opportunities, other things they could do with this park, I think maybe we should look at some of the other things and eliminate the go-karts. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicki Nash. And Dave Marmon, if you want to come up and sit on the front row right there and get ready, that'd be good.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Vicki Nash. I live in Cottonwoods Crossing. I've lived there for 25 years. Excuse me. And I've enjoyed the peacefulness. I work in a noisy environment constantly, phones ringing, people talking, yelling, kids screaming. I don't mind the kids at the ballpark. I mean, that's just kind of there. The idea of having so much noise at me 24 hours a day, if this is a project that's already done deal, I would like to know, because after 25 years, I'd have to consider selling my house. And it is about paid off as well. So therefore, I mean, it's kind of like I either need to find someplace else to live and leave my Gilbert home, or accept a bunch of noise that is going to drive me out of my mind. I just think that it's a really poor planned opportunity for these gentlemen, and if there's a possibility maybe of a class action lawsuit to stop it, I think we ought to do it, if that's what it's going to take. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Moorman.
Thank you. I think if we are going to have the racetrack, would you consider requiring it that it be indoors in a building? That'll really, that means it won't have that huge negative impact on the two neighborhoods. So I would ask that you consider that. You know, I'm not against having a racetrack. I love doing things that are fast and exciting and stuff like that. I skate. I've had the season pass over at AZ Ice, and I love going over there. And most of us, that is one thing we like about a lot of people probably like about the park, the sound of the baseball games and all of that kind of stuff. So it's not like the way that first man who spoke and painted everybody as being NIMBY idiots or something, you know, in the two neighborhoods. That's not really the case, I think. People want to, when you're at home, you want to, that's when you rest after work, and a lot of us are outside a lot. I work from home, and I have an outdoor office, so it can have a big impact on me too during the day. I think the idea of the racetrack outdoors like that, whether it's the light or the sound or the pollution or whatever that is, that all goes away if this track is indoors. And I may be going over there, you know, indoors like that. And that solves the I mean, you get to keep it and get the rent from it, and people get to have fun, but do it indoors.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, one more. We're almost done. Robert Styler. Charles Gerard. I'll be looking your name up while we have Robert Styler come up.
If you turn up something negative about him, I don't know him. So, thank you guys for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. And I would like to give my comments and hope that you would look at them with the element of design in mind, if that seems to be the key issue. And I wrote down what I'm going to say because I have limited time, but thank you for serving our town. And I consider Gilbert to be my town. My wife and I lived here for 17 years. We lived in New York, New Jersey, Toronto, Los Angeles, forgive us for that, and the last 17 years in Gilbert. I'm always proud to say I'm from Gilbert. I love Gilbert, and like you guys, we've seen many developments. To name a few, since we've been here, we saw the building of the Santan Mall, the 202, the Polar Ice Rink, the hundreds of houses all along Higley, the apartments lining Santan Village Parkway, on Ray and Williamsfield, the increase at Agritopia, the expansion of Morrison Ranch. I've never complained about any of those things. I understand that Gilbert's a growing town and that many people want to be part of Gilbert like we are. I'm happy to welcome them, and I'm really happy to have played a small part in keeping Gilbert a great town. I may have not thought every project that came up was good, but I also understand that I realize that I live in a growing community, and that requires us to work together and to understand different viewpoints because we work for the good of the community. There's only one time in my time living in Gilbert that I came to a meeting to address an issue, and that was for this same piece of land. And I think there's the same problems that were then that are now. People have mentioned them ad infinitum, the incredible hours it's going to be open, the noise, the light pollution, all these type of things. And I want to say this, I'm glad somebody from other towns out here, but I'm going to tell you that Gilbert is a standout town. We are not Mesa, we are not Chandler, we are not Tempe. Gilbert is a unique town in this area. There's no town like it. And if you asked every person in this room and any person you run across why they moved to Gilbert, Arizona, it's because of the quality of life. And that issue has come up so many times tonight. My wife and I moved here because my wife spent hours on time researching all towns in Arizona. Gilbert, Arizona has a quality of life that the other towns around us simply do not have. And what does it mean in this case? It means the ability to sit out in your backyard without noise. It means the ability to look up at the night sky and to be able to see it, not being clouded by lights until 10 p.m. or midnight. It means to be able to take a walk in the local park with your neighbors and kids so you don't have every square inch filled with concrete. Quality of life is why people move to Gilbert, Arizona. It is our most valuable amenity. People don't move here because of a go-kart track. People don't move here because they could go to a splash pad. People move to Gilbert because of the quality of life. Any town can have any of these things, but I think our most valuable amenity is quality of life, and that issue is in your hands. And I ask you to preserve it. I ask you to preserve Gilbert the way it is for us, for our children, and also for the new neighbors that are coming in to join us. So thank you.
Thank you. Charles Gerard, I found your card, but it didn't say you wanted to speak. That's why we just said you were opposed to the item. We read your name earlier. Do you want to speak? Do you have something unique to say? Okay. I can tell by looking at you. We're going to hear something unique.
No, it's retired. I'm retired. 31
Oh, I
years
thought that was
from
going to be
Intel.
part of your mask. You peel that off and the beard comes with it. I was hopeful.
Okay, it's retired. Okay, so a couple of points, and then because you've heard everything I'm going to say, or everything that I've identified here, you've already heard. But a couple of points. Number one point is that I was in the Highland Ranch area in Guadalupe and Power. We sold our home to move here. I did have to sign a non-disclosure agreement where you talk about your home, and I was really afraid that when I tried to sell my home because of the Gateway Airport, that would be a constraint. Okay, so if I go to try to sell this home now, that go-kart area is going to be a constraint. So the property value will be impacted. People are going to look at it and they're going to go, wait a minute, I don't want to live here. So a couple of things. Number one, I talked about, it says, I really felt this home was a gift from God. I mean, we were able to buy in the Cottonwood area at the end of a cul-de-sac. I was like, wow, how could we find a home like this? You know, it was perfect, right next to a park. We're able to walk the dogs, sit in the park. It's all quiet. You know, you've all heard about the noise. So that's an impact. The other thing is, my wife and I, we go to bed about 9 o'clock, get up at 5 in the morning because we're retired and we can do that. Okay, people are upset because dogs bark. Can you imagine now go-karts? That's gonna be like, come on. A couple of other things. The gentleman over here, I think he minimized it. There was like 547 signed petitions in a 5-day period. 5 days, that's 100 a day in this area against this go-kart park. The concern I have, let's not kid ourselves. My wife and I left at 5:15 and there was like probably a half a dozen parking places left on a Wednesday at 5:15 p.m. That's it. They were filled. And you think that people are going to be driving down Knox? It's a 2-lane road, one on each way. You add additional traffic, guess where they're going to park? In my backyard or in front of my house. There's no other place to park. The other thing, the last thing I'll cover is this. You know, they talked about hours of operation. What kind of family members are going to be out at 10, 11, and 12 o'clock at night? You know, what's going to happen is we're going to have people loitering in our areas at that time. It isn't going to be families. They're going to be loitering, you know. And I guess the other point is that please make this decision like it was your neighborhood, like you were in the area, like it was going to be in your backyard. 2 other points and I'm done. Okay. I ask that you prioritize the neighbor's quality of life. There's a lot of the quality of life. We talked about, you know, they're talking about property value, and it is going to be an impact. We talked about noise. We talked about traffic. You know, please, we're talking about a neighbor's quality of life as opposed to corporate profit. They just don't compare. And the last point that I want to make is that we're only asking, we're only asking, you know, for you guys to provide the same living environment that you live in today. We want that as well. And if you put in that go-kart track, I don't know what to say. We're going to have to move. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. I think that's it.
Chairman?
Yes.
We have quite a few people online that have requested to speak.
Okay. All right. Man.
The first person that registered to speak is James Walker. I will unmute James Walker at this time.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good evening, guys. Thank you for volunteering your time for this extended meeting, I'm sure. I just wanted to share my support of the project. I live one block north of Knox, so it's not literally in my backyard, but it's right across from my backyard. Will it be noisy? Probably. Well, I don't know if anybody really knows what the difference between 50 decibels and 80 decibels. But since I've been watching this meeting, I've heard a freight train go by. I'm sure that was louder than 50 decibels. Countless motorcycles. I see the lights from the baseball field. But one thing I'm willing to sacrifice for that is my children. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and we see this as an opportunity where they can have something to do productive, like Mr. Cooper stated, a wholesome activity. It's a place that we can bring our kids to. And will it be the most convenient project for everybody? No. But if Gilbert wants to pride himself on a great place to raise a family, this is a great step in that direction. And you know, an opposing viewpoint is one of the things I didn't like about this neighborhood when we bought our house here 5 years ago was a vacant lot on the corner. So had there been a go-kart track with a miniature golf course and a splash pad, that would have enticed us to buy the house even more so. So I know this is a tough decision for some and it's unpopular for many. I see some people giving comments tonight are my neighbors, and it's unfortunate that maybe there's a rift, but I think a lot of it is fueled by nonsense. People coming around signing petitions talking about gang activity. I don't know of any gangs that take over miniature golf courses. And so using, you know, key words like gangs and a $50,000 property decrease immediately, all of that is just done to get people riled up, because the fact of the matter is they just don't want to hear the sound. So yeah, will there be some noise? Will we hear go-karts? Sure. Will they be running 18 straight hours a day? Probably not. So thank you guys for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to share my opinion.
Thank you.
Person who has registered to speak is Sylvie Katstan. I will unmute Sylvie Katstan at this time.
Thank you. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for hearing me this evening. You know, these types of discussions have occurred in hundreds of towns and neighborhoods around the country. And, you know, when some of these plans were approved, the blowback was considerable and costly litigation ensued in some cases. You know, we're looking at 2 subdivisions of homes, and we haven't even talked about the rentals which are under construction and probably will be impacted even more so around, you know, this 4.5 acres of amusement park running 15 hours a day. I mean, let that sink in. And, you know, and on a school night too, no less. Understandably, noise is going to be a concern. You know, Mr. Cooper has provided our planning team with data to justify a lease. To me, that's like putting the fox in charge of the hen house. You know, whether we're talking go-karts, PA systems, speakers at numerous features, kids screaming at the water pad roughly 100 feet from homeowners' backyards, the numbers don't add up. You know, physics tells us that every time we add an additional car at the same decibel rating, we are increasing the volume by 3 decibels. It's kind of like saying, you know, if I have 1 speaker, does adding 2 or more make it louder? And if so, by how much? Well, we know the answer to that, and that is a difference you will notice. We heard about Curtis and Glendale registering 80 to 85 decibels at his track. You know, the mid 40 decibels, Mr. Cooper would like us to believe, that's fiction, and certainly isn't going to remind you of a library. This proposal also supports adding an additional 66 decibels to the existing 79 decibels of a single car if we're looking at that 3 decibel rule. Add to that speakers that are rated at 70 to 85 decibels with explosions and crashes at their features, and there is an additional provision that allows the volume of music to be increased an additional 3 decibels above the overall sound of the park. I don't know, maybe it's to cover up all the noise in the library, but you know, I was also reminded that the wind is going to carry that exhaust from the gas engines into our backyards because of its proximity. You know, this is our reality, not a pretty model with thoughtful numbers. We've heard the concerns about parking, and you know cars are going to take that right turn into the Cottonwood crossings to find parking, because they already do, along with any number of kids who hang out in the green belt at night. What about our safety? You know, we're already chasing kids out of the green belt at night. They're drinking, they're smoking weed. I don't enjoy picking up beer bottles and other unmentionable items on my morning walks. It's so difficult for me to believe that someone could have read this proposal and think it was a good idea to put in our backyards. Our quality of life is gone. The only reprieve is to stay indoors, and even that's not a guarantee. The concern for property value is absolutely warranted. This project is not a good fit at this location. Please don't put it in our backyards. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
The next person on the list is Pam Seaman. I will unmute Pam Seaman at this time. Are you there still?
I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Pam Seaman. I live in Greenfield Lakes. My biggest concern is about the hours of operation, that it's going to be noise too late at night. I'm a little bit concerned about the traffic. I'm concerned about the parking. I'm concerned about the lights that late at night. And I would really like to request that this project moves someplace else, not this close to our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person is Andrew Robel. One moment, please. You are now unmuted.
Andrew.
Mr. Robel, are you there? Perhaps we'll come back to Mr. Robel. The next person on the line is Kevin Seaman. Mr. Seaman, you are now unmuted.
Thank you very much. I oppose the noise of this project. If you are going to put in the go-kart track, at least put it indoors and add the required parking spaces. But my first choice would be to have you move it someplace away from neighborhoods that is more conducive to this kind of project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Try Andrew Robel again. I will unmute you at this time. Are you available?
Yes, can you, hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Andrew, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I expressed many of the concerns that several people have had, particularly with the parking. My only things that I have to add, I've been around go-karts before, and yes, we're looking at 79 decibels, but I'm really concerned about what happens over long term, because engines don't keep that low tuned volume. It will go up. And if we're looking at 70, 80, 90, we're going into the same decibel range that Gilbert has by its noise ordinance set for industrial regions. The other part about that is the dog park in particular. As people said, I'm not, this isn't my backyard, but it is my neighborhood. I go there with my dog. We have two main dog parks in Gilbert. One is Cosmo, that's really well known. A lot of big dogs go there, a lot of aggressive dogs. The dogs that go to Crossroads tend to be the smaller ones, and often ones that are shy, scared, or afraid. We're going to be frightening them even more by sticking car engines right next to where they go to relax. And overall, I agree that the argument here, we're saying we don't need to worry about the squeals, but the sound study said, things will get drowned out during work hours, during typical traffic hours. Later at night, that's not going to come up. It's going to be loud, and it's going to add to the ambient noise that we have in Gilbert. And noise pollution is a major issue that we're just ignoring by saying it'll just get covered up. That buzz will increase. I mean, there's multiple studies by National Health Institute and the WHO in particular that show ambient noise leads to deafness and other issues. I'm not going to go into that. There are multiple studies people could find. My concern is just if we are going to have this here, and I'm not opposed to where it is. I agree. Someone made a good point that it is just a vacant lot right now. But if the applicant is really trying to be a good neighbor, which he has made that claim, actions speak loudly. If he makes that effort to enclose this to have concerns, then yes, he's being a good neighbor. If he's not, then he's also sending a message. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On the list is Sandra Nosek. Ms. Nosek, I will unmute you now. You're unmuted.
Sandra, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you. Are you speaking? Maybe we will come back to Sandra Nosek. Next on the list, I have Anissa Schultz. I believe Ms. Schultz has left the meeting. I have Tess Dover. Just a moment. I will unmute Tess Dover at this time.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am not going to rehash everything everybody has said. I'm not supportive of this. I just have one question. How did this get this far without public input? I get the feeling that the planning board gave a blanket okay for a lease without really knowing what the land was going to be used for, except a fun park. Now we're at this stage. How do we get out of it? Can we get out of it? How did this happen? Answers, please. Don't everybody speak at once.
This is the first time this has been brought up to this commission. So we have not seen this before. It's been presented at other town meetings. The town council had to approve the lease, and that was a public hearing and a public meeting. And the applicant listed, I don't know, a dozen other town meetings and neighborhood meetings and different things that he's had to get through to this point. So we're at the point where we're at design review.
So in other words, but the neighbors are not told about this unless we read it somewhere. We're not notified of this in advance. That seems a little shaky to me.
Part of the town code is that they are not required to have a neighborhood meeting, but at this meeting, they are noticed, right? Yes, they're required to notify for this meeting.
Yeah, after everything is said and done, then they notify us. That seems a little bad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
We'll have Stephanie Bubenheim.
Hi,
The planner.
so, just to clarify, for design review cases, we are required to notify property owners 300 feet around the parcel. So the parcel is a portion of the Crossroads Park, it's greater than the actual subject site. And then we do have to notify 1,000 feet perimeter of HOAs. So we do notify that. It is following the state statutes. State statutes actually don't require design review to be notified, but Gilbert does require design review to be notified. But as I said earlier, design reviews do not require neighborhood meetings.
Thank you. Does that answer your questions?
Sad but true, but okay. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for taking the time.
We can get Sandra Nosek on the line. Sandra Nosek, I will unmute you. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Okay, it's working now. I have lived in Cottonwood Crossing since 1995. In 2017, the town entered an agreement for a splash pad, miniature golf course, and an outdoor maze in phase 1. According to the site plan, they moved phase 1 to phase 3, where it should have been originally. In my opinion, the site plan is a design, and I believe that at no time were 21 gas-powered go-karts ever mentioned. And the 34 list never came up. They were working on the 34 list at the time. So had we known that gas-powered go-karts were going in, apparently it must be a thing now because there's 2 other electric go-karts coming in within 3 miles of each other. Okay, so the dog park has been discussed quite a bit, but I spoke to a lot of them, and their main concern is that the location next to the go-kart track, even with a 6-foot block wall, I have a 6-foot block wall in my backyard. I can hear everything. I can hear the lawnmowers running in the green belt. I can hear absolutely everything, and they will come up with the same thing. Their dogs are not going to enjoy it. They are not going to enjoy it. I have done research, and some research has shown that insurance by go-kart rental businesses must consider possible danger. One study shows that injuries seen in the EO from go-kart rental include head trauma, whiplash, burns, fractures, and soft tissue injury. Not one mention in this proposal has anything to do with the actual go-kart on the track. There's nothing about if there's going to be seatbelts, if there's going to be helmets, if there are measurement requirements. Golfland Subdivision has requirements that you must be at least 58 inches tall to drive and no more than 350 pounds. It also says if you're a passenger, you must be at least 3 years old, not be be less than 40 inches tall at least, and then 45 pounds is their minimum weight requirement for a passenger. There's nothing at all about the design on the go-karts in this proposal. Why is that? I mean, that's part of the most important thing. I am a nurse, so my concern is the head trauma, the whiplash, the burn fractures. The safety is a big issue. It doesn't mention maximum speed, the seatbelts, or the helmets. These requirements are important to help from exceeding capabilities, which may result in injury. Go-kart tracks share a business category with amusement parks. A 2015 study by McCord and Hauser shows many United States cities have property crime rate 2 to 4 times higher and a violent crime rate 11 times higher in neighborhoods next to amusement parks. The town of Gilbert employs currently someone full-time to paint over gang tagging and graffiti within 24 hours of it surfacing. This most often occurs near railroad tracks. A big thing because the south end of this go-kart track is right up next to railroad tracks. Gangs also have a high rate of drug distribution and tend to frequent amusement parks to solicit drugs. Guess what? They're going to have a parent drop off.
Ma'am.
So they can leave their children and teenagers unsupervised. That's a design flaw, in my opinion.
Ma'am, your 3
Why
minutes
would
are
we-
up. So if you
why
want
would
to
we
make a
want to
closing
break-
statement.
Wait.
Okay. Let's just mute her then. Okay. Next.
Nobody else has signed up. However, I will open the lines because there are quite a few people still listening in. I will open the line to everybody. If you have not spoken and you wish to speak, please state your name. Please state your name.
Yes. He doesn't even hear it. No, he doesn't hear it. That's because they play video games with those things.
Well, there's your amusement park right there. Gosh. Okay. All right. We've closed that. Mr. Cooper, do you wish to address the concerns that we heard here tonight? Will you, while he's doing this, okay. Make it quick, please. We've been here for 4 hours, so. We have. Maybe you haven't.
I am aware most of my concerns have already been addressed.
Okay.
I would encourage the commission to be skeptical of the acoustical analysis that has been presented here. Obviously, the developer is going to be presenting an optimistic assumption on everything. And just judging from the numbers that they're submitting, they really just do not line up. One of the speakers on the phone made the same comment, similar comment. So I just ask you to not take that analysis at face value. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, thank you very much for the opportunity to get up and just say a couple of closing comments. We are very thankful that everyone came this evening. We're very thankful that they have shared their feelings very passionately. We're grateful for neighbors that are so interested in their community. I think that that is a great thing for us as well, because we know that you're going to be taking care of your property just the way we're going to be taking care of ours. A couple of comments I just want to clarify. We passed along some information that a manufacturer's rep gave us on the sound directly to the noise consultant. This was not something that we had anything to do with. It was an independent study that, frankly, I don't know anything about sound. And so we passed it along. When some of the neighbor concerns came up, our noise consultant contacted both the sales rep team that puts these carts together, as well as Honda directly, and had conversations with them and confirmed everything that they had is valid and exactly what Honda is telling the salespeople to tell anyone who asks. So we just want to make sure that that's clear. Also, I don't know that you're focused on this, but there really are not going to, we don't have loudspeakers on the track. This isn't going to be, gentlemen, start your engines and all of that kind of stuff, or come on in from the cart. There are no loudspeakers on the track. It's not big enough to need to do that. All you do is you go out and close the gate, and people know that it's time to come in. You go open the gate and they go out. There's no need to make any announcements, and we're not going to have any PA system on the track or throughout the park. There may be some ambient music or whatever, but again, it's been designed not to spill outside of the track. Really, the other comment I just make, we did do that traffic study very early on with the parking study. And in that study, I invite anyone to take a look at it. In the back of it, there is an exhibit depicting what we plan to do in the future with this fun park, and there's a picture of a go-kart track. And it's in there. It was also mentioned and discussed at the neighborhood meeting, and obviously it went into the packet that went to the town council that approved the lease that allows for the go-karts to be there. So again, the use is approved. That was discussed a long time ago. Hours are approved, they're in there. Whether we're gonna be open all of them or not, business will, we'll just see what business wants there, what our customers want. And we will be very good neighbors. I've already offered to be part of a site development committee or whatever it is for that whole area to just kind of sit and talk through issues that come up. This is, all we're trying to do here is provide a good, wholesome, fun place for people to be, for people to come with their family, their grandkids, their cousins, and all of that. This is a family-oriented business. We're all families. And that's what we're trying to do here, is just do something fun for Gilbert, that fill a niche that just isn't here. And so we thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions that you may have had after hearing those concerns. But we feel that this is going to be a great project, and that everything that's been testified to on our side is true and accurate. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff at this point? Yes, Anthony and Commissioner Anderson. Go, Commissioner Anderson, go ahead.
My question is more for, I guess, staff. Maybe Mr. Cooper could answer this too. When was this a project approved, or the lease approved through the town council? And what was the process for that in terms of getting notice out to the public?
Commissioner Anderson, thank you for your question. John Kennedy, Parks and Recreation Manager. The public process summary, we went through the Parks Board and to a couple of different council executive sessions in 2015 to issue RFPs for a recreation amenity on this parcel. In May of 2016, we went back to the council through executive session. They supported negotiating an agreement, a lease agreement with Castle Golf, which turned into Santana Adventure Park. In July of 2016, it was a Parks Board meeting where they heard an update and voted to support continuing negotiations. In October of 2016 was the neighborhood outreach meeting that met the notification requirements that Stephanie spoke of earlier. In February of 2017, the Parks Board voted to support approval of a lease agreement. Council also heard an update in February of 16 in an executive session on where the standing was on that lease agreement negotiation. And subsequently, the council approved that lease agreement on March 2nd of 2017.
So is it fair to assume that this project has been kind of in the planning, or something's been planned, some sort of recreational facility has been in the planning for this site for the last 6 years?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then, Chairman, my question was a follow-up to what I had asked the representative earlier in regards to section 14.3.
Thank you for the reminder, Councilman or Commissioner Bianchi. The section 14.3.2 does require that the applicant, the developer, is held to all federal, state, and local statutes and laws when it comes to the environmental impact. We feel as though that language will further, require all the regulations to be followed as needed.
And the town can monitor that on their own as needed as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Pardon? You couldn't hear me? Oh, okay. And then the other question I would have is, in regards to environmental considerations, I'm wondering if noise would potentially fall under that as an environmental consideration as well. But I don't know if that's called out specifically in the lease language. That would kind of be my question or challenge.
That would be a question I could not answer at this point in time. That would probably be more of a question we'd need our attorney to help.
I'm just
weigh
trying to
in.
determine if there's any recourse or protections for the town if this did become an issue, after construction.
Yeah, I would not be the expert to be able to answer that question.
Okay.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Chairman Bloomfield, Commissioner Bianchi. With regard to the lease, I'd have to take a look forward. I don't think the environmental section deals with noise, but as was talked about earlier in the meeting, there is a noise ordinance that will apply to this section, will apply to this project as it applies across the town. And that's a way to keep the noise in check. If the noise does get excessive, residents, citizens, anyone can file a complaint with the code enforcement, who would go out and verify noise levels under the code to ensure that the project stays in compliance with the noise ordinance.
Okay. Thank you. We don't have any further questions or comments from staff? Okay.
I just have one question, and I don't remember who it was. Somebody alluded to in the packet that there was a requirement for 599 parking spaces. I don't recall seeing that. That seems quite excessive for this type of venue. Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, sorry. The reference to the 599 parking spaces is in the table of the staff report where it says parking provided. So there is a parking requirement and then a parking provided column of those tables. So that was taken from the AZ ICE when that was approved, those parking spaces, because this is being a shared parking agreement with the AZ ICE. In total, there are, I wrote down the number, but I don't have the paper with me. But a total for the entire site, there are more parking spaces. It's 976. Yeah, 976 total on site.
Chairman, can I ask a follow-up?
Yes, please.
So I guess my question to staff is, could the Phase 2 land that's being reserved right now, could that potentially be used for overflow parking quickly if that need arose?
Commissioner Bianchi, I would just have to clarify with Parks and Rec that they would be approving of the use of overflow parking for that site. But in addition, the Phase 2 does require 28 additional spaces with the planning of that future phase.
Commissioner Bianchi, yes, the lease agreement allows the developer, they are the leaseholder, so it would have to be a negotiation a talking point that we would work through. From a Parks and Rec standpoint, we would encourage using it as overflow parking lot if is in fact needed. But it's a discussion that we would welcome to have.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yes.
I have just 2 points. One is on the lease agreement. So section 14.3.4, which talks about pollutants and discusses environmental pollutants or atmospheric pollutants as reasonably determined by Gilbert. So I would assume because one of the permitted uses in this lease agreement was a go-kart track, that would be potentially considered by the town to be a reasonable pollutant and not in violation of the lease agreement. That would be number one question. And then my second question is just on the noise study, just to be sure that we're talking about the same thing. On the noise study, what was modeled was the noise of the engine of the cart, but other factors were not considered for that model, correct?
The noise consultant did clarify that the noise was being read by the cart engine, correct?
And has, on the question about the lease agreement and pollutants, has the town determined that go-karts would not somehow violate that particular clause about any kind of environmental pollutant?
That question is going to have to be deferred to legal to clarify if it falls under environmental or not.
Commissioner Jones, so the go-karts are a permitted use, expressly permitted under that, so correct. However, if the town determines or receives complaints that there's excessive pollution coming from that, then that's certainly something the town would look at and enforce under the terms of the lease, as well as any other environmental rules or statutes that apply.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have one last question for Mr. Cooper. On the pavement, because the noise is the biggest issue of the night. The pavement that you're using, is it going to be concrete? Is it going to be asphalt, or is it going to be rubberized asphalt?
Chairman Bloomfield, commissioners, the plan right now is for concrete. That's the typical use, and that works
Sure.
best with these carts.
Okay. My tires squeal more on concrete than they do on asphalt, so just a point. Might be a design constraint that you want to look into. Just saying. All right. Anybody else? All right. Then we'll close the public hearing. I think I'll ring the gavel with that one for tonight. And we do appreciate, don't take my enthusiasm at the closing of the public hearing as not being appreciative of your participation here tonight. It really has been appreciated. And it's been fun to see people in the audience because it's been a very long time since we've had a crowd. So bringing it to the dais, if anybody has comments and discussion points here tonight or a motion, and we'll go at it here. So Commissioner Bianchi, you seem like a willing.
Unless Commissioner Fay would like to kick it off.
Sure. I'm jumping ahead of you because the last two times you've jumped ahead and you've nailed my point too. So I will say the two biggest concerns for me are the noise and the parking. But I'm not really sure that there's much we can do about the noise here. It's the go-karts were specifically anticipated. In fact, they're enumerated in the lease. I think that decision was made short of an actual appeal to council in 2016. I don't know that there's much really in front of us. I am more concerned about parking because I do use that park. I use the dog park. My kids have grown up and played sports there. My experience is that about 75% of the time out of the 1,000 spots, you have your choice of 990 of them. And then 20% of the time, you're kind of like in Disneyland driving around or at the mall at Christmas time, driving around looking for that one spot. And this is going to be operating kind of continuously. So during the 20% of the time when you're driving around looking for the spot, it's going to cause a bit of a jam. I do think staff has an opportunity, though, because this is developing in phases, to call an audible at once phase one develops. If this does peter out, or if this does show out that yeah, in fact, parking on Saturday mornings is a real bear, that perhaps some kind of requirement can be made or some kind of adjustment can be made at that point. I don't know anything else that really can be done. There just isn't more space unless we're going to consume one of the dog park pieces, which for the Parks Department, I definitely do not advocate for, even though I don't go there very often anymore, nor do I advocate for consuming any of the other territory. And that, if that's the case, there really isn't anything more that can be done in terms of parking. I just think it's a concern, and hopefully I'd like staff to think about it when we start looking at permitting phase two, if we've learned any lessons from phase one. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bianchi.
So based on everything that we've heard from the variety of folks tonight, we hear you. I totally understand your concerns. I understand the locational argument with this as well. I would have similar concerns as well if I lived in very close proximity to this. In fact, I don't live too far from this, near Greenfield and Warner, so I totally understand that. The other thing that I understand is, working out of Gateway Airport, I understand that noise is very subjective. It affects people in different ways. It's not just a decibel reading. And that's one of the reasons we have a noise complaint line in the community relations program, so that everybody that calls usually gets a response back to kind of understand their issues and try to talk through that. I think as we've talked about here as a committee, we understand our role as a design review board. It's kind of limited in what capacity we have. So, typically we're dealing with development of private property rights. This is a little different tonight because we're dealing with the development of public property, and it deserves the same amount of scrutiny in the review as well. So as far as the site overall, I think the site looks sufficiently laid out. I think the heights are within the limits. The tallest point and the flame features have been removed. What I kept coming back to tonight was the methodology on the noise reporting, as well as the environmental concerns regarding the emissions and what may be included in that section in the lease that the town or residents would have recourse on if it became a lingering problem. So I think in closing, I think in regard to the design, I would like to see plentiful landscaping and kind of a shielding height and potentially a low-rise wall, probably around Greenfield or along Greenfield, anything to help mitigate any added noise exposure, because we know that even if it's small amounts, it's going to occur. I think if that's addressed to satisfaction, then I would be in favor. But as is, if there's just the plain fence without any additional screening, I think anything we can do to help the neighbors, given that it's a by right use at that location, I think just helps the project.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Munt, anybody? Commissioner Munt.
Thank you, Chairman Bloomfield. And I want to speak a little bit to much of the process and not to reiterate, but just of the fact of design review versus what we would want to be able to say here, or what I guess the fervent outpouring of individuals who do not approve of this project versus what capacity we actually have to make adjustments. What I would say is I understand your concerns about the noise. I have 3 children, though, and I think it's a great idea. If it were right in my backyard, I may have some concerns about it. I'm not going to pretend as though that wouldn't exist. But the one thing I would say, and it's been alluded to by Commissioner Bianchi, about the sound decibel levels. If in fact this track does create an inordinate amount of noise that is outside of the compliance within the town code, that I believe is 55 decibels measured indoors, and there's changes in the evenings, it would be very simple for all of you citizens to be able to call, have that happen. And in fact, if it is that loud, that would, in most cases, a number of violations would end up violating the lease, at which point they would have to abandon ship and all of the improvements go to the town. So I'm not saying, oh, there's nothing you can do, but the fact of the matter is, if in fact this does create such an inordinate amount of noise, you do have recourse, and there are mechanisms within the government of the town of Gilbert that can help you to address that. Unfortunately, at this point, with a lease that had this enumerated as a use, the ability for us as a board to dictate whether or not that can take place is absent. So I just wanted to clarify, and by no means deminimize anybody's efforts in coming out to speak, because I happen to be a strong advocate of public participation, and so thank you. But like I said, if this does go, if we do pass it and it does go to the council and go through, and it becomes an issue in your homes, by all means, please take advantage of the mechanisms available.
All right. Commissioner Jones, you have anything?
I say the same. I echo the same feelings. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Simon, Commissioner Anderson, anything else? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll actually just kind of make a statement, and that is that I appreciate everybody who's come out tonight and spoke, whether for or against. Appreciate all the comments, appreciate all the emails that we've received, and keeping it civil. Obviously, the opportunity to have conversation is what this is about. I'll agree 100% with what Commissioner Munt said, and that is the case that's before us tonight is design review, and whether or not that design review should go through. So as much as I appreciate all the comments, we do have to look at it from that narrow scope. I keep going back, and as I was listening to conversation and comments, I keep going back to the noise study that was provided to us and the before and after. And how much seemingly little it actually changes. So with regards to what Commissioner Munt said, there are mechanisms in place that give the community the opportunity to take action in the event that it is not what we expect it to be. So I would say keep that in your back pocket, and if they do not end up being a good neighbor, if this does get passed through all of the channels that it needs to go through, then you do have recourse.
All right. Thank you. Sounds like everybody's made a decision about which way they want to go, but nobody said anything about it. So anybody want to make a motion?
Chairman Bloomfield?
Yes.
If I may.
Yes.
Just to clarify a point that because this is design review, it will not be going to the council?
Correct.
The design review purview is within the planning commission.
If this was a zoning case or a general plan case, then it would be a recommendation of approval to the town council.
Correct.
In this case, this is the approval because we're the design review board, not the planning commission at this moment. So on this case.
Chair, can I ask a question to council? So understanding that we are the kind of final, well, we're not the final say. We make a vote here. What is the process after this to the public? I know there's a certain time frame before the approval becomes concrete. Can you explain kind of what that the time frame is and what the process is after this to the public?
Ava, do you know? I don't know off the top of my head.
The decision can be appealed to council. I don't know the exact time frame. Perhaps Stephanie does.
The decision can be appealed to town council within 11 days of approval. And if this does get approved, the approval date would be today. So 11 days from today.
Okay.
Is that business days or calendar days? Because Gilbert has a 4-day week.
Yeah, so it's calendar days. If it does fall on like a Sunday, we accept Monday as the cutoff.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Chair?
Yes.
I think what makes me feel a little uneasy about this, of course, is that we're basing this off of a modeled noise study that says that we will not violate a noise ordinance. I think that we know real world, and I can fully appreciate it's super difficult to account for all of these different variables, but I think that's the one thing that I'm basing my decision on is taking an expert's noise study, the best that they can do based on the different inputs. But I just know to myself that that's probably not real world scenario. And so I guess as has been told to, to the residents here that there is recourse for that should there be a problem. But that does make me feel a little bit uneasy is that we're making a decision based on something that's hypothetical.
Sure. No, I can appreciate that. Looking for a motion still. Anybody? Sure. Those are our options.
Yeah. So Chairman, as I was saying, my preference would be if we're not going to do any additional sound mitigation as far as walling, even if it was in the reduction, it would be hard for me to vote in favor as is. So.
Okay.
But feels free to continue with a motion if it's there.
Okay. Our motions that are available, the public hearing is closed. The public hearing is closed. Thank you. The motions that are available to us are to continue, deny, or approve.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the findings of fact and approve DR 20-182 Santan Adventure Park site plan, landscaping, grading and drainage, elevations, floor plans, lighting, colors, materials for approximately 4.55 acres, generally located at the southwest corner of Santan Village Parkway and Knox Road, and zone public facilities institutional. PFI.
Okay, we have a motion. Anybody want to second it?
I will second it.
Okay, Commissioner Anderson seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay.
For
Do
our
you want a
minute,
head count?
yes, or show of hands or something, just so I could read it into the record. Those that were in favor? We have Commissioner Munn, Commissioner Simon, Chairman Bloomfield, Commissioner Fay, and Commissioner Anderson. Those opposed? Commissioner Bianchi and Commissioner Jones. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, everybody, and thank you to the public for coming out tonight and taking your time and spending it with us. Okay. Item number 19, Planning Commission minutes. Vice Chair?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as written for the regular meeting of March 3rd.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Fay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I think that's it. Report from, I don't have anything to report on. Any commissioner members have anything? Eva, do you have anything that you'd like to report?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just briefly, I'd like to thank Sydney Bethel for her excellent presentations this evening and in the past, and inform the Commission that Sydney will be heading over to our Economic Development Department. She has accepted a position as the Economic Development Redevelopment Specialist. So this will be her last Planning Commission meeting as our planner too, but we will still see her as she is not leaving Gilbert. She's just switching from planning to economic development.
Okay. Congratulations. All right. Thank you. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting.